afternoon, and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Great to be with you. Happy Redemption Thursday. We're getting there, gang. We're getting there. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online. ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free. Always. Don't miss anything. But if you do, go back, get caught up at your leisure. We'll post all 3 hours to Apple Podcasts. You can email the show if you like, jcs at 979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at Jay Cameron Show. Off of the cap to you, YouTubers. I got games, and one of them is our game. That's right. Feeling pretty good about it. I like this matchup. Florida State +5 against Louisville. Let's come out the box swinging.
Noles like this matchup. I mean, Nole fans, if you saw the numbers on our podcast on Monday, it was like we beat Miami back in 2013 or 2014. People were ready. They just wanted to hear good news for once.
They needed it. We got some guests on today's show. Andy Sweeney's going to join us. He works for 680 up there, ESPN's station in Louisville. He's my counterpart. He'll join us. All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero, specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. In the 4 o'clock hour, Lee DeKemper, JoeBucksFan.com. He'll join us to talk about the Bucks and the Raiders. He's part of the Scuttlebucks. You can hear the Scuttlebucks after this show concludes. It will be coming up at 6 o'clock right here on these airwaves. I believe it's also on Sunday.
Andy Sweeney is moved up to 3:20. He was originally looking at 3:30, but it's about 20 after now.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that we'll have him on and get him in here, and we'll start talking to Andy Sweeney. In addition, I think, yes, in the 5 o'clock hour, what am I talking about? I know this. Joey St. Germain, Dr. Joseph St. Germain. That's right. He'll join us because it's daily fantasy football lineup time as well as numbers time. A little DFS on the JCS. He'll join us as he's wont to do in the 5 o'clock hour on Thursdays. I always enjoy that segment. We get best value quarterbacks for week 7. We're going to get the best value on wide receivers. This is kind of a segment I'm using in my own life, Tom, for some wagers.
Oh, is that so?
Well, Joey does a good job, and that's all part of the Downs and St. Germain research team, and he does it for more important subjects than betting and fantasy football, of course. He does it for entire businesses, but I need the data for the betting purposes.
Yeah, application skills. As my biology teacher in high school, he'd say, application what, guys? Skills. That's right.
So it is Redemption Thursday, and away we go. The aforementioned Florida State-Louisville game is on my radar. I'll take the Noles +5, baby.
I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
That is a game I'm playing. That is true. I believe in it. I like that game. I will take those points. I like Florida State to win it.
I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
Don't need those points, but I'll take those points. North Carolina -14.5 against NC State. The Bailey Hockman-led Wolfpack, I don't think, are going to be in a position to win this game. I'll take North Carolina and give the 14.5. They got to be angry. I got to imagine that they're licking their wounds a little bit here, thinking, man, could we have started any worse than we did? Come up just short? Probably aching a little bit, want to take it out on NC State. I would think they're going to play angry in this game. Alabama's given 21.5. I know that's just north of 3 touchdowns and extra points and all that good stuff, and that's an important number, but I don't think this game is even close in the slightest. Give me Bama to boat race Tennessee. I'll give the 21.5 there.
I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
Like Vatech -9 against Wake, which means I'm going to get screwed. Purdue +3.5 against Iowa. Just a hunch. Miami -12.5 against Virginia. I don't think that Virginia team is very good. I think Miami will take care of business against teams that aren't very good, and Virginia falls under that umbrella. I would note that the Penn State-Indiana game is also just a hunch since we've not seen, none of us have, a Big Ten team play this year. But give me Penn State -6 over Indiana. And in the National Football League, tonight, Philadelphia takes on the Giants. And I like Philly, given the 4.5. It's more of a bet against the Giants than it is for Philly. But there you go. I'll do it, -4.5. I'll take Houston +3.5 versus Green Bay. And I'll take, you like that pick, don't you? That's not on everybody's radar. I can tell you like that one.
I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
Yeah, I think it's a close game. All Houston does is play these close games. That's what they do.
And Deshaun Watson has been a production machine over the last few weeks.
He's done right by you.
He has.
Chargers minus 7.5 against the Jags as well. So there you go. I'll do that. That's a bet against the Jags. I also, I've been pleasantly surprised by the Chargers offense. So Herbert's been good, man. I like that kid more than we thought we did. I mean, he's a lot better looking than we saw him at Oregon. This is a different looking kid to me.
They did a lot to not showcase him because what we're seeing now is better than what we saw in college. Usually it goes the other way.
Yeah. I will tell you this, Tom, having been at that game, we were able to walk down along the rail there. The security guy was really nice, and I think it's because he, obviously I was with a kid, and it was Bryce's first game, and he was wide-eyed and taking it all in. It was really cool, but I did ask a couple times if we could come down close to the field because I wanted to get a picture. But the guy was super nice, and we were adhering to all the rules, and I think he appreciated that, made his job easier. So he was like, yeah, come on down. Don't worry about it. And one of the times that we walked down there was during pregame warm-ups, and Herbert was probably 10 yards away. That's a big dude. He's, you could see how that hit on the sidelines we all saw where he stood up. Yeah, he's built to take some shots.
Well, but he did a lot of work to get to that point because he wasn't that big in Oregon.
Yeah, he's big. Now,
like the frame was tall and wide, but he wasn't as strong and dense.
Yeah,
because you got to be. I mean, to take on an NFL linebacker.
Well,
NFL linebacker.
Stand up and look at him after he goes to the ground.
Yeah, be a trampoline.
That was bizarre, that play, because that guy almost knocked himself out hitting Herbert. Herbert just kind of looked at him and chalked back to the huddle. Well, that's different. You don't see too many quarterbacks do that. He's got a big arm. He's not afraid to let it go. He does a good job of looking off safeties to get the one-on-one that he wants. He was impressive. I don't know. As it is with Charger quarterbacks, sometimes it gets beaten out of you. Eventually, you just kind of become that guy that everybody goes, yeah, he's pretty good. I mean, Phillip Rivers for years, I feel like, played a good brand of football, and we all kind of went, because you never really thought the Chargers were going to put it all together.
Well, they're the same team for so many reasons, even though they've moved locations. Keenan Allen, it feels like, has been there since 2005.
He, too, is a big dude.
And Eckler feels like he's been there since 2005. I know they had Melvin Gordon, but Eckler's always been there to spell him. Since I was in college, it feels like.
Well, let's cross our fingers that over the course of today's show, as we're talking about football, that we don't hear anything else about, COVID-related, delays, because the Raiders have a situation out there. That Bucs game is the Sunday night game against the Raiders. We don't know now if that's a full go because the Raiders had to send Rodney Hudson and the rest of the offensive line on home. By the way, you did know that's that Raider team has what, 2? Yeah, we got 2 Knowles on that team, or is it 3? I can't remember. I know.
Well, it's at least Rodney. They used to have LaMarcus. They used to have Cam for a minute.
They still have LaMarcus Joyner.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
he left L.A. to get there. That's what it is.
Yeah, he left the Rams to go to there. Yeah, that's where he went. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was the opposite, but yes, you're correct.
He is there now. Actually, I went and checked the injury list this week because he was originally kind of doubtful, but now I think he's probable. I want to see him play. He's a nice player. He's not an elite player, but he's a good starter in the league.
Yeah. That's his height gets in the way of him
really
being a Pro Bowler versus him being a starter.
Yeah, he's a guy that he does everything exceptionally well for his size. He has to, or else he wouldn't be in the league. But you can't change the fact that you're short. So people throw up high on him, and there's not a lot you can do that. We used to talk about that all the time with Greg Reed. I don't care what kind of skill set you have. If you're that fast change, obviously he could get in people's hip pocket. He'd hit you for his size. He wasn't afraid. He was an incredible punt returner. But when it came to coverage, I always thought, yep, good luck with that because 5'8's 5'8".
I still don't understand how he didn't get a tryout at any point in the last 3 or 4 years for an NFL punt returning job. He still got it.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
When you're looking for 6 to 8 yards an average out of return, you're not looking for like Devin Hester. You're just looking for somebody to catch the ball.
Devin Hesters don't come around too often.
Always catch the ball, and if you can advance it 5 yards and you could get down to net 38, you've done big things for me. And he can still do that.
We would think, yeah. Well, that surgery that went wrong and everything that happened with him, and then the rap with the injury and the thought that he would never going to be the same, but then he did rally back, and of course he turned his life around as well. I was rooting for him to do something. I always kind of liked Greg. I knew he had some issues, but I liked Greg. I liked him ever since he called when we first joined ESPN Radio, and it was my first show, and he's calling in to apologize to Seminole fans.
I've only thrown things against the wall like 2 or 3 times in the 8 years here. That was the first time when
Oh, we had breaking news on the.
breaking news, and
I had to go in and talk to
If
him.
we're doing 8 hours, we're going to pre-record some things. We're going to have some interviews, and,
Yeah,
and none of them are timely anymore. None of them. Gone. Out the window.
But we did do 8 hours.
Maybe when we get to the 10-year, we should do another 8-hour
No,
camathon.
you don't have to throw that out there. No, we don't need a
Maybe a
camathon.
10-hour camathon?
No. We can just do the regular show. Hell, I didn't do anything special for the 20th anniversary of me being on the air. I'm not going to do a
What
10
was
hour.
the day for that? I've never known what day it was. Do you?
I don't know.
Do you know what time of year it was?
Yeah, it was summer.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go all the way back to my brief stint at WTCL, good Lord, couldn't remember where I started. That I don't know the first day I was on. I just know I was wide-eyed and scared, and I was going 105 miles per hour on the interstate to get to Chattahoochee because I was running late for my first time ever on the air. I couldn't be late, but that's a true story. I got pulled over going like 100 miles per hour.
On your first day?
Yeah.
You got pulled over on your first day? I
Yes,
didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I got pulled over subsequently like 8, 9 times. I used to haul ass because I lived in Tallahassee. That place, Chattahoochee, a good distance away, and I would ride out, and invariably I was late. I was running late, and I would race out there. You get off on the one exit, and sometimes there'd be a cop waiting on me, like just off the exit down this.
Well, by time 8 or 9,
Oh
yeah.
no, he knew.
He knows who you are.
Cameron's coming. I got him.
His
Locked him
on-air
up.
shift is in 5, 4.
Yeah. Whoa, there he goes. I got him. Yeah, I got to where one of the cops knew me, not because of the show, just because I had to traverse that road all the time. And he took pity on me. And I was broke. Oh, my God, was I broke. And he pulled me over, and he goes, man, they're going to pull your license. You're going to lose your driver's license. You got to stop this. Leave on time. He was like tisking me, almost fatherly. He leave your house on time. What are you doing? And never wrote me a ticket. That time. He didn't, like 2 or 3 times, he didn't write me a ticket. He just scolded me. Leave earlier.
So you got
Jeff.
like 5 tickets?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had my license suspended.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You had your license suspended?
Yeah, because I couldn't afford to pay the ticket.
Oh, man. Well, that's the cycle of poverty.
Right. That's
how that works.
That's exactly right. I lived it. I know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I got that ticket, and I was too embarrassed to borrow money from anybody. I was broke in between jobs. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. This is all how I got into radio, and I didn't want to go back to school and get my master's. I was tired of school, and I just kind of really was aimless. And I got a ticket, and I couldn't pay it. It was one of like the second or third time I got a ticket on that trek out there, and I couldn't pay it, so I didn't. And then once it gets past 30 days, you get the suspended license. And back then, like you could get in real big trouble if you got pulled over on a suspended license. Like they could take you away if they were inclined to. But I don't think they do that now. I think if you say you didn't know, even if you're lying, I don't think they do that.
I see. Well, that's
There
good
you go,
legal
kids.
advice.
I want everybody to know. You just got to stick by your story.
This is an honest show. It is an honest show.
Yeah. I remember once I'm getting pulled over in the Publix parking lot, and I had a suspended license, and I knew it was suspended because I hadn't paid the previous ticket. And the cop asked me if he knew why I was being pulled over. And this is when I learned, I don't know if they still do this, but they would, they randomly type in your driver's license, your plate, to see if you're, riding dirty, I guess. Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, well, back then I didn't even think about it, but it would be broad daylight. I'm just sitting at a red light, and I'd be like, I'm not doing anything wrong. And then all of a sudden, whoop, whoop, I'm like, what the hell? And clearly they had just typed it. I must have looked like a criminal. And then I pulled in there, and then he goes, you know why I pulled you over? And I go, I nodded yes while I said, no, I don't. Because I thought that was my only way out. And he was like, good answer. But then he didn't take pity on me. He was mad. He was mad.
Because BS was driving to the old station once, and I was probably doing a remote with that stinky 100.7 van, but
Makes an appearance 2 days in a row.
I was throwing the seatbelt on
And he
up
got
the
you
hill.
for not wearing a seatbelt.
I was exiting my apartment
Yeah,
complex.
yeah.
And I'm throwing it on as I'm going up the hill, San Luis, turning right on Tharp, and then that was enough. And I was like, officer, you see my address. I'm right here.
I'm
He goes,
right here.
most accidents occur within. I'm like, oh,
that
here.
nonsense.
All right,
Matt
all
Mahar
right.
used to get pulled over on the regular driving that beat up truck of his. I knew he was going to get pulled over. I used to tell him, I'm like, man, you're just screaming out to get pulled over. When we did mornings, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Anybody driving at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're either on your way to work or you're drunk. And so I used to say to him all the time, man, that truck is a young person's truck, and I'm telling you, you're going to get pulled over now that we're doing mornings left and right. You better be on the up and up. You better be good to go. And he was like, I am. And he got pulled over all the time. They'd see that truck coming down Monroe. They're like, look at this hoodlum.
Coming down Monroe.
Coming down
Yeah,
Monroe, buddy.
yeah.
Yeah, there he was. I'm like, that's it. You're done.
And so he's like, I'm just going to work, sir.
I told the story. I used to go to the old Dunkin' Donuts on Monroe. It's no longer a Dunkin' Donuts, but it was forever. Now it's like
It's
one of
impossible
those,
to get into.
Yeah, now it's one of those things where you can get cash for your car or whatever, like temporary loans. But I used to go to that. It was being robbed one time when I pulled in.
Oh, my God.
There was a cop there. The door was open. The whole thing. I was like, I didn't see the robbery.
That'll wake you up.
Yeah, no, I was about to get out of my car. I was half asleep, but I would always get this coffee. And there was this nice man there. I'd get my coffee, and he knew me. And I got out of the car. I looked. The door was wide open. I was like, why is that door open? There's a cop car. Oh, there's a cop in this. Oh! And I got back in my car.
You know why I know that Dunkin' Donuts?
Because I sent you to get me coffee from
Dozens of times. Dozens of times. Burnt hands.
You got to earn it as
Burnt
an intern.
hands, the spillage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those were important things. That was the beginning stages of a career.
Little did I know.
Yeah.
The seedlings.
It's the Jeff Cameron Show. Andy Sweeney going to join us. Are we good in there? You checked on it? He texted
Good to
you?
go.
Good. Andy Sweeney, Louisville's version of the Jeff Cameron Show.
He's going to hold on for a couple minutes.
All right, good. We'll bring him up here in just a second, and let's find out how Louisville thinks about this game against the Noles. They're reeling a little bit right here. I think they're ripe for the picking, Tom. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. We get a chance to do this each and every year. It's become a tradition. People probably sitting around going, surely Cameron's going to have Andy Sweeney on. Well, you're right, everybody. I am. ESPN Louisville. You can listen to him on The Take, 3 to 6 p.m. on ESPN 680 and 105.7 there in Louisville. And he joins us to talk about Florida State and Louisville. Andy, how are you, brother?
Jeff, fellas, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, man. Doing good. This is a game between two struggling teams. I talked with you yesterday, went on your radio show. We talked about it, but I want the take from Louisville side of things now. And I got to ask you, my guess is, and I'm not trying to pour salt in the wound or chide because Florida State's not very good, but I got to imagine this year's a bit of a bitter disappointment through these first 5 games or so because I'll be honest with you, the talk last year was that, Satterfield was going to get that turned around. We all think of him as a good coach and that they were moving in the right direction. There was obvious signs of progress, even though the defense was a sieve. But frankly, I don't know that things look much better. We could chalk it up to COVID, but what are the thoughts there at Louisville?
Well, it's crazy, and I am always on the negative side, people think, but I view it as realistic. I mean, Jeff, coming into this season, let's be honest about where U of L was. Louisville fans were hoping to build on that 8-win season. You mentioned COVID. U of L has not been hit by the COVID wave for the most part. They have not used that as any sort of an excuse. They said, hey, we're ready to go a couple weeks before the first game when we didn't know if we were, going to have college football. And Louisville fans thought that they were, not maybe going to the ACC championship and not anywhere near Clemson. But definitely not at the bottom of the ACC. This year's been an unmitigated disaster so far. Quite frankly. And I know there's some Louisville fans that, well, it's a play here or there. And we had a bunch of crap on Monday, the Moral Victory Monday, which I'm sure you guys maybe have had before over the last couple of years you kept it 12-7 against Notre Dame in what was a terrible football game. But their defense isn't really much. It's a little bit better. The offense is a ton worse. And we were talking about potential, 8-3 this season. And they just better hope they get to 3 or 4 wins this season. So some people are trying to say, well, you'll play the young guys, find out what you got. And all of that is fine. But I'm like, dude, 5-6 weeks ago, before the season, especially after the Western Kentucky game, even after the Miami game, we were not talking about full rebuild and find out what you got and everything else. So it has went from, hey, contend to, for the ACC to, hey, try to win, 4 or 5 games this season. It ain't good.
We're talking with Andy Sweeney. He hosts an afternoon show there in Louisville from 3 to 6 p.m. It's called The Take on 680. You also find it on 105.7 for radio program. All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializes in iPhone and iPad repair. You guys know that. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. You can find them online as well at phoneherotlh.com. Yeah, Andy, a big problem that I've noticed when I look at this Louisville team, you mentioned both sides of the ball. Let's start with the offense. Malik Cunningham doesn't appear to be any good. What's your thought about him?
Well, this is, okay, so this is where, and we talked about this yesterday, we'll talk about it now. This is where, your quarterback down there in Tallahassee, this is one of the most interesting parts of this game. Jordan Travis was on the team a couple years ago, and he didn't like Bobby Petrino and Bobby's son, Nick, and nobody likes those guys. And so he left in the middle of the season and never even got to meet the new coaching staff and Scott Satterfield. And we talked here, Jordan Travis early on, I don't think would have been the starter here, much like he wasn't the starter at Florida State. But there would be a massive quarterback talk and competition and conversation if he were still here. And then you throw in Chubba Purdy, who Louisville had until Mike Norvell gets hired. Was it him and Josh Griffiths go down there? They have a weekend in Tallahassee and flip their commitment at the last second. And so Louisville fans, I think Malik Cunningham epitomizes the season for U of L. Malik Cunningham was supposed to be the guy. Malik Cunningham has given U of L before the season hey, he's the starter, he's the quarterback, and we don't have to go back and forth. You guys have went back and forth for a number of years. Louisville has went back and forth for a number of years with the, week-to-week quarterback situation, or one guy's good and then he's bad and then you throw somebody else in. And Malik Cunningham not living up to what we thought he was going to be this season, Jeff, it's a problem. And to me, the offense as a whole is a much bigger problem to me than the defense, and the defense ain't very good. Malik Cunningham has turned the ball over. His completion percentage is down. And just quite frankly, his decision-making. And one thing I talked about going into this season, if you go back to just simply looking at the game log last year, I mean, Malik Cunningham he either didn't play, he got benched, he got injured. I mean, this was a guy that was really inconsistent last year, had a couple good games, had a good game against Mississippi State in a bowl game, a bum Mississippi State team that was getting ready to fire Joe Moorhead and hire Mike Leach. And Malik Cunningham, his inconsistency, his inability, like Louisville's best part of their team are the wide receivers. They can't get the ball consistently to Dez Fitzpatrick or Tutu Atwell or anyone else on the roster. And his inconsistent play has been a problem. And there's nowhere to go because Jordan Travis isn't there, because especially Chubba Purdy decided to go to Florida State. You're left with Evan Conley, who was going to go to App State with Satterfield and went to Louisville, and he's fine, but he's very much a backup. And he came in last week against Notre Dame. He ran the wrong play. It almost was a fumble. Then he nearly threw a pick, and then they got him right back out. So Louisville doesn't have much of a pivot here. They got to go with Malik Cunningham. I'm shocked he hasn't been injured more than he has, but it has been a disappointing season. And I think the quarterback position is a scary one for Louisville right now. I really do.
Andy, I actually was kind of walking on eggshells when I assessed his quarterback play as not any good, but you went ahead and buried him. That was that. You went ahead and buried him.
He was supposed to be good, Jeff.
Yeah, he
was.
I mean,
last year it was all the numbers. Well, if he would have had enough pass attempts, he would have been, near the top of the country in efficiency. And there was his personality is, I'm QB1. I'm going to be QB1. And, man, it just, for whatever reason, the offensive line hasn't been good for a number of years. But, I mean, they haven't been able to run the football. He's not taking care of the football. And it's been one thing after another. This team having one win over Western Kentucky. And, by the way, they beat Western Kentucky by 14. And think about this for a second. They had a deep throw to Dez Fitzpatrick that ended up being a touchdown. If he throws that, Florida State's going to intercept that on Saturday. So it's been uneven play. And it's been the epitome of their season has been his inconsistency.
Yeah, and I think some national folks lazily kind of labeled him as Lamar Jackson light. That didn't do him any favors because that's awfully tough to live up to, and they're not even close to the same player. I do love Tutu Atwell and Dez Fitzpatrick though. If he's got time to throw the football. Look, Florida State's defense hasn't been good, so this could be a situation where he comes out a little bit here and has a good game. Because Florida State's defense has been lame. What's the overall attitude about this game? Ordinarily, two bad teams face off. People are somewhat indifferent, but obviously Louisville fans probably have a bad taste in their mouth in regards to Florida State because of the aforementioned recruiting wins lately. And then secondly, even though Willie Taggart was a dead man walking, he did beat Louisville last year. Actually, both years he was here.
Yep.
So I got to imagine that Louisville fans are not real fond of Florida State, I don't suppose.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. So let's go back. Number one, I would say with this game, I'm hearing. Louisville fans think this is a winnable game. I mean, obviously,
sure,
and that's what
sure.
Florida State fans feel. So they believe it's a winnable game, and there's a lot of the narrative. I'll go back to what I said earlier. There's a lot of this, Jeff. That if we can win this game, we can turn we can start to turn the season. Syracuse is on the schedule. Wake Forest is on the schedule. Boston College, by the way, I think Boston College is better than Louisville. Boston College is on the schedule. And so, Louisville avoided North Carolina in the reshuffling. They avoided Clemson as well. Another reason Louisville fans thought they were going to be better this season is because of the easier schedule. And so they feel like if you lose this game, if Louisville fans feel like if you lose this game, it's a full rebuild, the season's over, there's no way to have success, at least the ones around here feel that way, and I would agree. Now, as for the Louisville let me go back. I think the season's done anyway. I mean, you can beat Syracuse and Wake Forest, and congratulations. That means nothing. Okay, that's like we talk about Kentucky football around here, beating Vanderbilt and Missouri. That doesn't mean too much. I would say as for the two teams, they played some good games. If you remember the national championship year that Jameis Winston team walked in.
Well, that was a great game.
I think that was a Thursday night. That's when Jimbo Fisher took them all down to a big waterfront park here at Louisville and made everybody mad. And that was a great game. And Louisville had the big win that year, and still choked it for the Orange Bowl. And Florida State still went to the Orange Bowl. But that was a big win for Lamar Jackson and Bobby Petrino. And then, if you remember a couple years ago, the interception at Louisville, right? That Florida State returned the interception. Well, all Louisville had to do was run the ball out.
A terrible decision. Terrible
that
call.
Was the 2-10 season for Bobby a couple years ago, and that loss really pointed to cratering the season, right? Louisville got up for that game. They botched the game, and that helped crater their season. It's interesting. Maybe the same thing happens on Saturday. Louisville fans feel like they can win this game. They like the little rivalry with Florida State, but even some of these down years at Florida State that you guys have had there in Tallahassee, boy, Louisville hasn't been able to pounce on them, and I just got the feeling the same thing's going to happen on Saturday.
Well, one last thing, Andy, I do want to ask you this, and once again, we're talking to Andy Sweeney, ESPN Louisville host, afternoon host, same time I'm on, 3 to 6 p.m. Check him out, ESPN 680 and 105.7 as well. I am curious. The defense looked really good last week. I think Notre Dame's offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the country. I assumed they were going to have their way with Louisville. It turned into a really ugly game, very few possessions for either team. But if there was a bright spot, it certainly was the Louisville defense. They handled Ian Book in this offense rather easily, at least in terms of keeping them out of the end zone. Is that who Louisville is, or are they the team that gave up all those yards and points to Georgia Tech? What is this Louisville defense?
Oh, your guess is as good as mine. I have how's that for expertise? I have absolutely no idea how Louisville's going to look defensively. Louisville played defensively good enough to beat Notre Dame. They played good enough to beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And obviously they played good enough and they beat Western Kentucky. Excuse me. So the defense has had a couple games here where they've been all right. And they have some young players on that side of the ball that they're going to play. But I don't trust them. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I don't know if you're looking at Louisville allowing, 30, 40 points, or if they can keep this in the 20s and make this a game. I have absolutely no idea. They got Keitrell Clark back for the Notre Dame game. He's a transfer from Liberty of all places. And he's been good for them. Monty Montgomery, maybe a coming out party for him. He's going to be all over the field. I would expect double-digit tackles from him. But Louisville's defense isn't very good. I think the worry here is that the defense played as good as they could play against Notre Dame. In other words, the notion might be, well, Louisville gave everything they had to beat Notre Dame. This was one of their last hurrahs. And I've got to be honest, I know it's bad analysis and flaky analysis. I just don't know, Jeff, what you're going to see out there. They're not good in coverage. Their defensive line isn't very good. They got some small linebackers. I don't know. I think Jordan Travis gives them some trouble running the football. I will say that. Passing the football, we'll see. But I think running the football and Jordan Travis getting out and being elusive, I think that's where Florida State can win the game. So I know it's not a grand answer. I just don't know what to expect. They've had some dreadful performances, and they've had a couple performances that, quite frankly, could have won them games at Pittsburgh and at Notre Dame, two top 25 teams. So I have absolutely no idea on Saturday. No.
So you're a beer guy and I'm a beer guy. Why don't we just do this for giggles and we can send each other beer? Whoever wins this game, the other wins, a six-pack. You pick it. What am I sending you if Florida State loses? I'll tell you what you send me. I want something local in Louisville, and I want an IPA if you have it, if Florida State wins. And then what do you want from me? I'll give you a local beer here as well. What's your taste?
Yeah, I mean, my taste is IPAs as well. That's not a problem at all. That's not a problem. Little 16-ounce 4-pack could be heading your way.
All right,
a couple buddies are shipping beer all over the place. Anyway, we can do that.
Let's do it. We'll talk. I'll text you. I'll text you the address. You text me yours, and I'll send you a local brewery here that I love, and you do the same for me, and we'll have some fun with it,
Perfect.
brother. All right, be good, man.
All right, take care, Jeff. See you, man.
Take care. ESPN Louisville radio host. The Take is the show, 3 to 6 p.m., ESPN 680 and on 105.7. You can follow him at The Only Sweeney on Twitter. That's at The Only Sweeney. And also check him out, ESPNLouisville.com. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Andy's funny, man. I have not heard his show. I've been on his show a few times, but I don't think he hesitates to note that
You think?
that Louisville is depressing right now.
I don't think he knows what's going to happen with the defense this weekend.
That's for sure.
I don't think he knows.
He has no idea.
Yeah, I don't think he has any idea.
And he can't trust him.
Quite frankly, I don't think he has any idea.
Yeah, I know. And I like that he posited as such. I also think, in terms of Louisville, that I too don't know what we're going to see. That's why I asked him. I wanted to see if he had a handle on the types of teams they defend well, for example, and those that they don't, if there was a trend. Because I watched Louisville. I've seen him. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
All right. But
I had something ready, but it wasn't supposed to already go.
Oh. I've watched Louisville, but I didn't see in depth the first couple of games. I just saw the numbers. So I don't, I didn't watch all of the Western Kentucky game, for example.
The aforementioned thing was expert analysis on what Louisville's defense is going to look like this weekend.
Oh, I bet I know where this is going to go.
Well,
There it is.
well, I don't get the brain the comb.
I don't miss that show. Remember when poor
Reese Davis.
Reese Davis had to pretend like he was a judge? He would wear the mock, the gown, the whole thing, and then Lou would sit there and yell at what's his face, the former lineman.
Yeah, that's Mark May.
Yes, Mark May. What's Mark May doing these days?
Whole lot of nothing.
You know who went away and never made it back? And I don't.
Salisbury.
Well, that's true, and we know why he went away. He pulled a Jeffrey Toobin. That story you knew was coming, not because of him, but because we're in the era of Zoom. I knew that we were going to get some crazy, scandal, some sort of slanderous sort of, oh my God, that happened. I didn't think it'd be him, but I figured some weird stuff was going to happen in the era of Zoom, because how many Zoom calls have we all been on where one of the people in the party that you're talking to forgets that they were on Zoom and does not exit out? And you just hear them talking, watch them walking around. You're like, hey, I've had to do that. I've had to text my buddy and be like, hey, man, I can still hear you. I hear you talking to your wife.
Oh, buddy.
You haven't said anything bad, but, you
could.
Before you do.
Yeah. So Mark May hasn't done anything. I think he hung it up. He hung up the headset after he hung up the pads.
Hey, while we're on the subject, what the hell is Trev Alberts doing? Remember that?
Trev Alberts. Let's see. This is bad for Mark in his Wikipedia. The last thing says he was replaced by Joey Galloway. Like, wouldn't I just go in there and edit that away? Like, replaced by Joey Galloway?
But he was.
Like, why specific? But, like, it could have been anybody. They do a roster turnover, like, that's massive every year at ESPN. But that sentence is in there. Maybe Joey put that in there. One night, Joey had a couple of cocktails.
He had a couple of cocktails. Like, here we go.
That's right. I told you, Mark, I'd never let you forget.
Oh, that's good.
Trev Alberts is only 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. I don't know what he's doing.
No idea?
No, it doesn't look like much.
Nothing going on with Trev Alberts.
He thereafter, this is Wikipedia's
You
getting
remember
a
he went
workout
cuckoo
today.
for Cocoa Puffs, basically. He
accepted a position as a columnist for the website of College Sports Cable Television Network, CSTV. That's a step down.
Hey, no, remember, he was incredibly jealous. He hated Kirk Herbstreit. That's where this all started.
He worked as a color commentator for NFL on Westwood One, which we have, back in 2006. He also provided color commentary for SEC football games on CBS. He's been an analyst for...
He hasn't done nothing in forever. Yeah. I never hear from him, ever.
He was hired as the athletic director in April of 2009 of Nebraska Omaha.
And
And
how'd that work out for him?
They eliminated football and wrestling in
that
2011. That was the end of him. So,
That was the end of that.
yeah.
We could go down a rabbit hole of former Nebraska stars from the 90s. Grant Wistrom. Go look up Grant Wistrom. You remember him in the NFL?
No. Can't say I do.
I don't know why. So over the years, I think it's because maybe it was right in my alley where obviously our first national championship is over Nebraska in 93. I was at that game in the Orange Bowl, saw O.J. Simpson with his Bruno Mollies walk right past me.
I have to remember him. He played for the Rams,
Yes!
the greatest show on turf.
You
I hated
remember
that
Grant
team.
Wistrom? He was a good player.
Picked 6th overall in the 98 draft.
Yes, he was. He was really good. Played at Nebraska. I have this strange encyclopedic knowledge of all things Nebraska football. I can remember. It's not just Tommy Frazier, but it's Jason Peter. It's all those guys, the Peter brothers, in fact, who were actually a real problem. They had some stuff off the field.
Did they?
Yeah. They weren't good guys.
53 career sacks for old Wistrom. That's not too bad. Mm-hmm. Forced 7 fumbles, recovered 8 others.
You learned more today about Jason Peters than you ever had. I mean, Grant Wistrom.
Yeah.
Probably more than you ever wanted to know, too.
He's big into charity, apparently. Is
Grant is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. He's the opposite of Jason Peter. Yeah, Jason Peter. You remember Jason Peter, don't you? He was picked in the first round. He too, was in the 98 draft. He went to the Carolina Panthers.
Jason Peter.
Yeah, Peters. Or Jason Peter, yes, Peter. Yep. I was doing a broadcast. Christian, you remember Christian Peter? That's his brother?
He was a consensus All-American, was Jason, in
Jason was
1997.
he was a great player.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great player. And Christian Peter was a great player, too.
It was short. I mean, it wasn't a cup of coffee, but he didn't make it past his first contract with the Panthers.
Yeah, I think he got hurt, but he also was a pill popper. He ended up having all kinds of issues with pills. He became a recovery guy. He also and he does like motivational speeches and stuff now, as everybody does. But I would tell you this:
And a van down by the river.
Mm-hmm. I went and broadcast in Omaha when we went to the College World Series, and I think it was Christian Peter was doing a radio show there.
That's correct.
And
They changed formats.
They changed yeah.
Yep.
That's right. And he was right there next to me, setting up. And it was him and another guy prattling on.
With Jabba Chamberlain?
Jabba Chamberlain.
Yeah, I remember that story. Jabba's dad, right?
Jabba's dad was an interesting sight. That guy was a mess.
Boy, you've gotten mature in your 40s because you used to not hold back when Jabba's dad came up. He's an interesting sight. You used to say pointed things.
Well, there's a lot to point to.
Yeah.
There was an awful lot to point to, but that was, as we do this thing where we meander sometimes and get off track on segments where I just start talking about random things, it occurs to me that, A, how much time has gone by, which is amazing, and how much time we've been together on these airwaves, but also just in general in my career, how many weird, off-the-wall, and you've had enough now over the years, too, to build your own library of odd stories. Think about us in Charlotte and how odd it was when Millen walks in.
That is the greatest double dip ever because that's pregame show Matt Millen, and then that's in-game Gene Deckerhoff with
Krispy Kreme donuts.
And there were no donuts.
There was no. He said
Zero
it loud
donuts.
and sprinting to go as if they had just been set out.
And I'm not aware that he ever did commercials for them.
No, I've never asked him about it. He doesn't know that it's a running joke on this show or that we bring it up occasionally.
But actually, it was a trifecta because then after that, the Hogger was there.
Oh, the Hogger
And he
before he
strolled
kicked
up
the bucket.
in an askew Raycom hat.
Well,
is a 5-piece because that was the guy that worked on the Virginia Tech beat who was having convulsions next to me. And I don't mean in a bad way.
Yeah.
I mean like stomach problems.
Yeah.
From something he ate. And he goes, oh, God. Like that. Like 12 times during the game. And you remember that press box.
I do.
You sat in the second row because that's where Sports Info was and it was more spaced out.
Yeah.
They had us all wedged in arm for arm
No,
with the chairs.
not what you do
and
ever.
this yokel to my left, he goes, oh, God.
You're like, dude, take it to the bathroom.
And he's like jolting and stuff. I'm like, my guy,
yeah.
just go use the bathroom. I'll run. Are you on a chat or something? I'll run it. Just get out of here.
I'll run the chat.
Oh, God.
I've never had anything to eat, no matter how bad it upset my stomach. I once had food poisoning. I won't name the place because I actually like the place. Down in St. Pete, it's on the beach. It's famous. Anyhow, it is. I went there and ate their signature grouper sandwich, and I had it a million times before. I'm a big fan of grouper sandwiches. I've never been in more pain in all my life, Tom. Within an hour of eating there, I was buckled over in the fetal position. Now, here's the thing about that. Why do I bring that up? because that's a terrible case of food poisoning, and there's not much worse than food poisoning. I'll take a lot of things. You can slice my arm open, and I'll be like, it's all right. I got to get stitches. Food poisoning is way worse. So anyhow, that said, I've never convulsed from food poisoning. I've never had a thing that's made me go and shake or anything like that. Yes, you can throw up. Yes, you may have to use the restroom. Yes, you may have issues, but you don't convulse.
Well,
Who the hell convulses?
And it was like a jolt more than a convulsion.
It's still weird.
You know. But
if I were ever in a position to be in public where the kind of jolt that guy had was potentially in the offerings, I'm out. I'm gone. It's a football game.
Yeah,
you don't need me to be there.
It was a frustrating experience because you're wedged in there. Florida State's D-line is getting run over. They're converting every third and 15.
Skates.
Every third and 15 to the white kid who's wide open. Tyrod's throwing to him. And then this guy, every time you forget, you're like, all right, he's fine now. You know, it's like, all right, second and strong. God. I sat with you for the second half. I'm like, you got the right idea.
Do you remember Joel Makovicka?
What?
Joel Makovicka. You remember him?
O?
He was the fullback at Nebraska in the mid-'90s. You don't remember Joel Makovicka?
No, I don't have encyclopedic knowledge of Nebraska.
I don't. It's a dumb thing to have.
Tommy Frazier. That's where it begins
That's where it begins and ends.
Yeah.
Well, now you know Grant Wistrom, Joel Makovicka, Christian Peter, Jason Peter.
Who was the running back that got in trouble?
Lawrence. What's his name? Lawrence. He's dead now. He died in prison. Lawrence Phillips.
Lawrence Phillips. There we go.
He was a beast. Remember that? He was a good player. And then he was weird in the NFL. He was kind of up and down with the Rams, all that stuff. Dick Vermeil tried to save him. Dick Vermeil tries to save everybody.
Yeah, there was a 30 for 30 or an OTL or something on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I always used to get Lawrence Phillips confused with, in terms of angry off-the-field guys that are on their way to prison or probably going to prison. I'd get him confused with
Ray Caruth.
No, he killed his the baby mama. But no, Lawrence Phillips and Albert Bell. The baseball player.
Different sports. Interesting.
But similar troubled situations off the field. Both were elite on it at various points, and both were built. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were massive guys, and I remember thinking, man, those guys with temper issues, that's scary. It's not unlike what's his face, the offensive lineman that was with the Bills and the Dolphins and you know Incognito.
Yeah.
Richie Incognito scared me because you don't want unstable guys who are also capable of beating you to a pulp because they're massive.
He's having a career year, which is amazing when you consider all of the paternity suits. I believe those are parking tickets.
It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Redemption Thursday. All right. Got wagers for you. I'll lay them out in just a moment. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. Don't forget you can watch the show being performed if that's your cup of tea. Go to YouTube, and you'll see the Jeff Cameron Show if you type it in. Probably the most popular thing on YouTube right now. So get there. Maybe it'll populate for you automatically. Just knows that people want to see it. You can email the show if you like, JCS at 979 ESPNradio.com. Over 61, says Stanford Steve in the Florida State-Louisville game. He's going with the over in a shootout. He has it like 35-34 in a war.
So he has no regard for the Louisville performance against Notre Dame. He thinks Notre Dame took it easy.
Well, if you watch that Notre Dame game, one thing really stood out. They had no real interest in aggressively pursuing scores once they got up. Once they got the lead, it's like it was crazy to me that it was such a marginal lead. And, you're susceptible to a fumbled snap or something like that, and next thing you know, it was like a Jimbo-esque thing. They were just, hey, we know Louisville can't move the ball on us. We're going to run the football and eat clock. If we're able to get in range, we'll kick a field goal, but we're really just not interested in risking the football. And I don't think they trusted Ian Book all that much, and they do trust their offensive line, but so few possessions, it's hard to read. I thought Louisville played well on defense in that game, but again, Notre Dame only had the ball, 7 times? So it's crazy.
This is where I think Notre Dame, you might get some value for Notre Dame against Pitt this weekend because Brian Kelly can't be pleased with what he saw, and you would think motivation-wise, it matters so much for kids.
Yeah.
They were all ready for a long time to play that game against FSU. Time release, it was a time bomb, boom, and the offense comes out, they do what they do. And then the next week, they rest on their laurels a little bit. They're a little exhausted because they're not back all the way in football game shape. It's an earlier kick during the day.
Yeah.
A lot of factors. And Louisville doesn't inspire them on film. They're not worried about Louisville. But now they're going to get reamed for a whole week. And they go on the road and face a team in Pitt that they should be able to maul and run over both lines of scrimmage.
The underdogs play on the money line is a fun one always. You and I talk some about this. I'll spruce up the picks for the day by noting you can do a plus 140 or a plus 140, two different plus 140s at Georgia Tech just straight up to win or a Purdue. Feeling that Purdue, Tom?
Georgia Tech as whom?
Georgia Tech is playing somebody sorry.
I guess so. If
yeah.
it's plus 140, that's it.
Yeah, I didn't take them,
Again,
actually.
plus 760 anytime Georgia Tech takes the field. Purdue and Iowa,
I think
know.
Purdue could win that game.
Isn't Brom not coaching that game?
He'll be all right. I'm not a big believer in Iowa. But then again, Big Ten's tough to know right now. Hell, you can get Rutgers at plus 400 if you want to get out there.
Oh, that's a little froggy.
Against Michigan State.
The over-under is 44.5. I won't play this, but I would suggest the under. I know that offenses start fast in the COVID times, and maybe they're factoring in for that, but that game screams 21-16.
Oh, you talking about Michigan State and Rutgers?
Yeah, 44.5 is the total there. Yeah.
My wagers, I took the Noles getting 5. I like Florida State to win the game. I think Louisville is in the midst of a tough stretch. They won their first game against Western Kentucky. Haven't won a game since. They haven't looked real good. They did play very good defense last week against Notre Dame in what was an odd football game. But I think if we get some semblance of what we got for a half against North Carolina on defense, I'm talking about our defense, that is to say you get a few stops, a few 3-and-outs. If that happens, I think Florida State goes and wins this game because I like what we have with this offensive identity. I'll take the 5 points. I was happy to get them. North Carolina given 14.5. It's NC State's backup and Bailey Hockman. I'll take North Carolina to bounce back, play angry. Alabama minus 20. Now, I will say this. At NC State not suffered the injury at quarterback with the broken leg, and by the way, that was gross. If that hadn't happened, I would have taken NC State in the points here. They're playing good football. Poor Dave Doran, man. I rip his ass every year, and then they were finally playing well, and they lose their quarterback.
I'll bet you'd be closer to 7.5 than the number you got it at, though,
Yeah,
if their
that's
quarterback was playing.
Oh, well, that's true. Alabama minus 21.5 against Tennessee. I think this is a blowout. I'll take Alabama. I think Tennessee has to be pretty shook right about now after getting blown out by Kentucky. They scored 7 points. They're probably looking at their quarterback realizing, if we can't run, we're in real trouble here. Alabama will shut down their run game, and Tennessee will lose their third straight game.
If you're betting Tennessee here, you're betting that Alabama gets the big win over Georgia, and they're going to take it easy for a weekend, and it's a 17-point easy breezy victory.
This is allegedly a rivalry game. Everybody always points to this as some sort of rivalry game. I don't know. I really don't factor it as a rivalry game at all, but maybe that's what they're looking at too. I think Alabama wins this game by 30-plus points. Virginia Tech -9 against Wake. Wake's not any good. Give me Virginia Tech. Purdue +3.5. I always had a weird offseason. Give me Purdue. Miami -12.5 against Virginia. I don't think Virginia can play. Penn State -6 against Indiana. I may end up regretting this. I just did this on a whim. I have not obviously seen either of these two teams play, but based on recruiting, based on what I know about the two teams in previous seasons, I really don't understand why Indiana is getting just 6 points. I don't see it. So this is probably an ignorant play, but it was just for Redemption Thursday. I'm not actually playing the game.
Bob Knight will be coaching the game. I think that's why.
I hope he does the 2-minute challenge or the 30-second challenge or whatever I called that thing. Throw the ball as high as you can.
The Bob Knight challenge.
Yes, the Bob Knight challenge. That's right. You know, I've often wondered.
Yeah. Boy, he outlasted John Saunders. That's kind of sad.
It's really sad. I forgot that was John Saunders.
Yeah. I liked John Saunders.
I liked him too. That's depressing.
We need to get to the Libations Friday.
We do.
That's sad.
That just hit me. You blindsided me, man.
Sorry
I wasn't
about
ready
that.
for a John Saunders
I'm
reference.
Sorry about that.
Did he kill himself?
No.
I thought he did.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I think he might have.
Buddy, you better not get this one right.
Well,
I'm going to look it up.
Well, he had some suicide attempts in his past.
John Saunders
he
did?
battled depression. Look up John Saunders. He battled depression, man. Double check that. I'm a little worried. Did it pop up on the internet?
He was just found not breathing in his home. It was 4 a.m.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Foul play was ruled out by authorities.
Right. No. Yeah. He just
He
maybe
had
he had
not
a heart
been
attack.
feeling. He had not been feeling well in the days leading up to his death.
Okay,
but no
good.
specific cause was publicly announced.
Really? Tom's looking with concern.
Come on, man.
He's looking with concern.
I didn't know. No.
Well, he had previous problems. You can look this.
Not on his Wikipedia page.
Oh, well,
Must not be a fact.
I'm going to walk in there in a minute and show you the problems. I'm going to show you these previous articles. Dickie V talked about it. They were boys. In fact, he became an advocate. I mean this in a good way.
So John U. Bacon, I have no idea who the hell that is, but he wrote in a book that the coroner said that it was a combination of an enlarged heart, complications from his diabetes, and he had a breathing regulation issue. So it was more.
Well, good.
But it wasn't. I hear. What
I mean,
you're
I don't
saying,
want him
but
to die, but he's dead. So I'm glad he didn't kill himself. That's good. He had some depression things that he had gone through, and that's why I brought that up. It wasn't just willy-nilly. I wasn't just like projecting on the poor man.
His brain was donated to science as well.
Well, good. He's a man of science. That's important. Got a lot of dumbasses who don't believe in science. They're running around everywhere. Philadelphia -4.5 against the Giants. Houston +3.5 against Green Bay. Chargers -7.5 against the Jags. What do you think of them apples? You still shook about the John
That's a lot of
Saunders thing.
apples. I'm a little shook. Yeah.
Let me pull this up. I'm telling you. I know this is not good radio, but I say this because I think it's important to note that he did some real good things with this. I think in his battle with depression, when he was able to come out of it, he then became an advocate and helped others. And that's why I was worried that in the end it still got him.
Yeah, it did not though. Apparently.
So we never celebrate one's death, and he's been dead for 4 years. Did you know he's been dead for 4 years?
It feels like it, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, because he was everywhere on ESPN. You know, he had taken over for Berman.
That's correct.
He was doing well, actually, it was he and Berman, but they were doing the Sunday night highlights, and he was great. He was great.
Oh,
the
I
only
loved
thing he
him,
was
yeah.
bad at was the sports reporters. But how are you going to follow, Dick Schaap? Can't do it.
Pretty tough to do. Yeah, he was great. I miss him. It's a shame. Yeah.
Jesus.
We move on. Let's move on. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. You hear the music, it's time to bring in the man, Lee DeKemper, JoeBucksFan.com, the website. Bucks fans all over that website on a regular basis. I got to imagine with the huge lopsided affair this past Sunday against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, there was plenty of discussion on that website about just what are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We welcome him in now. Hello, Lee. How are you, brother?
Jeff, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. And you know what? You had a great weekend this weekend. You and Tom. I mean, the Bucks won, and that was just when's the last time we've all watched and enjoyed a Bucks game like that?
Oh, man.
Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, you guys had a great upset win to discuss with the Seminoles.
Yeah. So Florida State beats North Carolina on a Saturday night. Everybody's feeling good. You get up on Sunday. You don't have to get up too early because it's a 4 o'clock kickoff, so you kind of ease your way into the day after celebrating the night before. Bucks get down 10-0. You're thinking, well, this isn't going well. And the next thing you know, it's an avalanche. We get a rocking chair game. Everybody's sitting back, sipping on cold ones, laughing at the Packers while the Bucks just dominate. It was beautifully.
It was beautiful, and I'm starting to think that, not that I didn't think this before, but it's starting to sink in more. I'm starting to believe that Aaron Rodgers is a head case. And the reason why I say that is, and I really like Aaron Rodgers. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch, but it was in his head last week. I think we discussed this last week on the show. It was in his head that he didn't want to play on that turf in camp and at Raymond James Stadium. And once they got down 10-0, it's almost like he quit. Now, that's a damning statement for any professional athlete, much less the NFL. So I'm going to stop just short of saying he wanted to quit. But he was certainly confused, and his body language suggested that, let's get this over with and get the heck back to Wisconsin. And then I saw a stat Monday, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I read a stat where anytime the Packers have trailed in a game with Aaron Rodgers as starting quarterback, their win percentage is 46%. That really shocked me.
Yeah, that would be because
over half the time the Packers have ever trailed, even by 1 point in a game that Rodgers has started, over half the time they've lost. It's like, wow.
you probably wouldn't figure that given that he's a certain surefire Hall of Famer. But I don't know. That is interesting. I mean, anytime a team trails, obviously something's going wrong. I wonder how many times we would look it up if they were favorites or not in those games. But also, remember, he did have a run there, Lee, where he was Captain Comeback. Remember all those Hail Marys and the big plays on Monday Night Football and the game against Seattle and all that other stuff? He had some stretches there where he made big throws in the final minutes of games.
Yeah, all those Hail Marys were fantastic. That's why I was very surprised to see that stat. So, I mean, and that's also why I hesitate to say that's an absolute 100% truth. I don't know that, but that was really shocking to see. And I saw that or I heard that, I should say, on a national radio show.
Well, I will say that, hey, Lee,
wow,
real quick.
I haven't heard anyone dispute that. So.
On that front, though, Lee, I will say this: just the overall, you're positing that the Bucs got in his head. I don't think you're wrong about that. I think, the Bucs pressure obviously rattled him, and he didn't look like himself after they got out to that quick lead. Once the Bucs took away some of those crossing routes and rub routes and got to him, I think that it kind of avalanched on him. But also, it clearly, whatever between him and Ndamukong Suh, what do you know where that goes back to, what that's from? Was that when Sue was in Detroit? Because they were talking from the get-go.
Yeah, that goes back to 2014. I can't remember the offensive lineman, but there was a case. Sue, the only time he ever missed a start was a suspension, and that's when he stomped on a leg of one of Rodgers' teammates, offensive lineman in Detroit, if I remember correctly. And it might have been that same year or the year after. In Green Bay, Sue stepped on Rodgers twice, and it looked like Rodgers wanted to fight him. And Sue initially was going to be suspended, but the NFL threw away the suspension after Sue contested it. And he said, "Hey, my feet were frozen." It was in Green Bay. It was late in the game. I couldn't feel it. I didn't know I was stepping on him, and so the NFL tossed away the suspension. If you want to believe that, okay. And Rodgers spoke about that this week. He makes a weekly appearance on Pat McAfee's show. He didn't go into detail, but he admitted that there's a history between him and Sue that goes back to 2014 when Sue was with the Lions. And he said Aaron Rodgers thought it was more because they're rivals dating back to 2014. And he admitted that even though it looked bad initially, he said toward the end of the game it was almost like cordial, like, hey, you missed that pass, or yeah, you missed that sack. And it was kind of good-natured ribbing. And Rodgers even said toward the end of the game, when Sue was back there jawing at him, they were talking about getting together after the game.
Well, whatever it was, Sue had a fabulous game, and Rodgers didn't.
Oh, yeah.
So they need to keep the relationship as is, which is in Sue's favor currently. That was a fun game to watch. You know, I think Todd Bowles is sort of the, in my mind, de facto real head coach of this football team. I admire him. I think he's very good at what he does, and his adjustments in this game were outstanding. I guess talk about that Bucs defense. You know, I feel like, and we've really championed them from the beginning. They've had a couple of moments where they didn't look like the most dominant defense, but all in all, the numbers are there. And in an era where it's tough to get stops and the league doesn't want defenses to dominate the day, the Bucs are about as good as they come right now in defensive football in the National Football League.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And to reference your earlier point about Rodgers being rattled, he definitely was. The various blitz packages that Bowles was coming with, Rodgers had no idea where guys were coming from. I mean, he had, at one point, he had Levani David and Devin White blitzing and JPP and Shaq back in coverage. And obviously, Rodgers didn't expect that. He didn't know where they were coming from, at what point they were coming from, at what angle they were coming from. They were truly rattled. And I think that's, you want to call it the genius. That's the genius of Todd Bowles' defense. He has guys guessing so much that it throws them off track. I heard something this week, and I did not know of, that, you know, I was unaware that when Bowles played for the Redskins, that Bill Parcells would talk about him in team meetings, that apparently his defensive coordinator at the time with the Redskins, they were called the Redskins then, was Richie Pettibone. He was awful head coach. I think he lasted 1 year after Joe Gibbs, if I remember right, or before Joe Gibbs, one of the two. And he lasted 1 year. They got rid of him. But apparently Richie Pettibone's defenses were very, 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 not just confusing, but very complex. And Parcells and other coaches would send scouts and flunkies in the front office to go to Redskins games to try to figure out their signs, to steal signals, in other words. Only they were sitting in the stands like a fan, and they were trying to read a pattern. And Michael Lombardi was talking about this specifically. And Lombardi was saying you couldn't figure out what Pettibone was doing. And the cool thing about that was Pettibone, the guy who called the signals on defense for the Redskins, was a rookie undrafted defensive back by the name of Todd Bowles. And Parcells remarked that, you know, this kid's already aced the Princeton exam because he was a rookie, and not even drafted, a rookie, and he already had Pettibone's complex defense down where guys, seasoned pros, seasoned coaches in the NFL couldn't figure it out. And that obviously was a harbinger of things to come for Bull.
I think, by the way, we better enjoy this. He's going to be a head coach again. I know it didn't go well for him last time, but I think Todd Bowles will be a head coach again. The Bucs defense is going to be one of the best two in the league this year, and he's already being talked about, rightfully so, glowingly. We go back to Week 12 to where we are now. This thing has been a total transformation. The Bucs are now a team that leads with defense, and that's despite the fact that they have Tom Brady and they have the weapons that they have. When people nationally talk about the Bucs, they're now moving to talking about this defense more than they are anything else. And if that continues, I think Todd Bowles gets interviews in the offseason. There'll be a few jobs that open up. We know that. And I think he'll have an opportunity. So I'm just saying this to Bucs fans in general. We better appreciate this because I think he's really good at what he does, and I don't think he's going to be here very long. I hope I'm wrong about that, by the way. I don't want to keep the man from getting a job, of course, but I'd like him to stick around in Tampa for some years to come because he's really, really solid solid. Let's look at it the other side. I want to give you the opportunity because I know normally you can't wait to do so, but you love to talk about Ronald Jones. So fire away with the praises for the game that he had.
Oh yeah, a lot of Buck fans give me grief, give me flack because I was so harsh on Ronald Jones for a year and a half. And the reason why I was so harsh on Ronald Jones, I'm all about production. If you're on the field, you're getting paid, you produce. If you can't produce, step aside. As simple as that. Nothing personal. I mean, I think, and I hate to talk about myself in good or bad ways because I'm very subjective. I think I do a good job of setting aside personal feelings and just analytically focus at the matter at hand, at the play on the field. I try to pride myself in that as a goal of mine. And I mean, there's Bucks players that, I mean, my gosh, Altron Werner might have been my favorite player. He sucked as a player, but he was my favorite player because he always talked to me. And he always gave me really intelligent answers and always took the time to explain things to me. And I really appreciated that. And I appreciate it to this day. Likewise, with Ronald Jones, I have nothing against Ronald Jones. I'd see him in practice. He was horrible. I'd see him in games. He was horrible. And to his credit, he took to coaching. There was a couple coaches on the Bucs staff that took him under his wing, worked with him a lot, and we're seeing the results. And good for him. Good for him that he was acceptable to extra coaching. Good for him that he decided to retone his body and work and pound to keep working at it and keep at it. And now he's enjoying the success. And I give him all the credit in the world, both professionally and personally. A lot of players like, oh, what do I need to look to you for? I was a stud at USC. What are you talking about? He didn't do it. He transformed himself. And I think that's great all around. And that's really given the Bucs a dynamic that they did not have before. And one Bucs fan, you have these, I know you and Tom have these guys on Twitter too. Some guy was giving me grief because I wrote that it looked like Ronald Jones was starting to turn into Mike Allstott, like a really powerful inside runner. And this guy gave me a bunch of grief for that. Well, that's what he's doing. He's getting a lot of his runs between the tackles. And, oh, by the way, the Bucs are blocking very well inside, specifically Jensen, specifically Ali Marpet. And Ronald Jones is right behind him doing the job. So I don't know if that's a criticism. I think that's a benefit that he's doing so well inside. A lot of running backs don't like to do that. Rojo's doing it. Real quick, Jeff, about Todd Bowles. I'm like you. The Bucs ought to be worried that he might be gone. And there's a couple things here. I had spoken with an NFL source maybe a month and a half ago, and we were talking about Bowles. And this guy was telling me that Mike McCagnon, the former general manager of the Jets who worked with Bowles, was such an idiot that Bowles was handcuffed. That, he, no matter how good he did a job as coaching, he didn't have anything to work with because McCagnon was just completely inept. And by the way, look at the Jets since Bowles left. They're in a tailspin.
Yeah.
This week, I mentioned Lombardi before. Lombardi went on a big rant, pro-Bowles rant. Went on a big rant, and that's what Lombardi called it. He called it a rant. And, he basically said the same thing about McCagnon. He had a great line. He said, McCagnon comes from the Charlie Casserly School of Football. I'm not exactly sure what school that is. and he said the same thing. And Lombardi's words were, Todd Bowles was ripped off in New York. Now, Jake Arians, Bruce Arians' son, who is closer to the team than most people may realize, he goes on a local podcast once in a blue moon. And yesterday he was on a podcast where he talked about Bowles. And obviously Arians and Bowles are very tight. He doesn't think Bowles is going to bolt next year. He doesn't think so. Unless he knows the GM, unless it's a good situation, unless the team already has a franchise quarterback, he doesn't think Bowles is just going to jump out of the first offer that's thrown at him, that he's going to be picky. And that's smart, by the way. And apparently Bowles likes it in Tampa, and obviously he's being compensated well by the Glazer family. So he's not, unlike some people, Jake Arians, Bruce Arians' son, wasn't so quick to say that Bowles is a goner after this season.
Well, I
he
hope.
thinks he's going to stick around a year or two.
Well, I hope that's right, and obviously he owes it to himself to kind of obviously navigate the waters there and understand what he's getting into. So he's in a place where I think he's going to have opportunities over the next 2 to 3 years. So he doesn't have to jump at the first one, and it would be good for Tampa if he stuck around. Let's get real quick to this game. We don't know at the time that we're recording this whether or not it's going to be played. The Raiders sent their offensive line home because it was a positive test with one of the members of that offensive line. So the whole segment group basically told to stay home. So we don't know. What are you hearing? And then secondly, let's get an update on the Bucs injury situation. In particular, how healthy is Mike Evans? He was obsolete in this last football game. I'll grant you they didn't need him, but it'd be nice for him to have more than a catch and show up and play if he's healthy.
Sure, he is with a bum ankle, and Evans is one of these kind of guys. Throwback, he'll get on the field if he can walk, but that's really hobbled him, really set him back. And he is getting healthier, but it is an issue. Arians said this week that teams that are double teaming Mike are regularly leaving Gronkowski open over the middle. And Arians said both he and Brady, which I thought was interesting, both he and Brady are starting to learn to use Gronk when Evans is double teamed. Because that tells me that it's a completely different offense Brady is using. What worked in New England may not work here. I thought that was very enlightening that Arians said that. As far as the injury front, Arians said that they're getting healthier, they're getting better. The key is Godwin. If they can get Godwin back healthy. Arians, he thinks the offense will really open up once Godwin gets healthy. And the fact that he's missed a few games, you can tell him and Brady really aren't completely on the same page quite yet. As far as the Raiders go, if you're asking me what the Bucs worry about, Henry Ruggs. He's a speed demon. He gets by you, forget about it. If they can contain Henry Ruggs, I think the Bucs will be okay. That will be the big issue for me, if they can contain Henry Ruggs. And, of course, if Trent Brown can't play because of the COVID, that should open up things for Shaq Barrett, since Trent Brown is the right tackle. So that would be, in the Bucs' response, a good thing. But I think Henry Ruggs is the key. I'm not worried about the running. Every time the Bucs face a good running back, they're able to shut him down. So I'm not really losing sleep over Jacobs. To me, it's Henry Ruggs. Derek Carr's on-again, off-again quarterback. Obviously, he's burned the Bucs in the past. But Henry Ruggs, if they can contain Henry Ruggs, if he can't get past Carlton Davis or Jamel Dean, I think the Bucs will be okay.
My brother, it's always good to talk to you. Be well, stay safe. Talk to you again real soon.
Same here, guys. Have a good one. Thanks again, as always.
All right, take care. That's Lee DeKemper. The website, joebucksfan.com. You guys know that, of course. And I would note that the game itself, you get a little worried about right now. We're just going to have to monitor that situation. But I like that he said early on when we were talking that perhaps if they do have to move it, that they could easily flex it to Sunday night or maybe even move it to a Monday or a Tuesday. I mean, that the league is hell-bent on getting these games in. If they can, because obviously they're losing the ability to kind of manipulate the schedule as we go forward.
Yeah, the flex would be Monday afternoon or Monday night because it already is Sunday night, but they might be able to flex something else into
correct.
the NBC slot.
Yeah.
But they might even play Tuesday if they need to. I mean, that would suck for the Bucs
weird
in the back
stuff.
end of that equation. But yes, the NFL is going to be aggressive in trying to avoid creating too many extra weeks of the schedule, a week 18 or a week 19 that throws everything out of whack with your TV deals, with the Super Bowl, all that stuff.
That interview and this show brought to you by Bill Curry Ford. Bill Curry Ford General Manager Sean Sullivan is incredibly serious when it comes to his love for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their fans. He will help you personally 7 days a week. Call him, email him, or visit Sean inside the beautiful Bill Curry Ford showroom 1 mile north of Raymond James Stadium. Ask for your Scuttlebucks/Joe Bucks fan discount, and Sean Sullivan will truly do everything he can to help you at Bill Curry Ford, everything he can. That's the family service you come to expect from Bill Curry Ford, and they've been honored by Ford headquarters many times for their exemplary care of customers. That's Tampa's first family of Ford for the past 60 years, folks. Get shopping today at BillCurryFord.com.
Oh, suki, suki now.
Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Redemption Thursday. That was Lee DeKemper last segment. The entirety of the Scuttlebucks episode that he is in is going to run after today's show. You can find it right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Yes. Or you can go to the Joe Bucks Fan Podcast Network.
Or as Hall of Famer Don Sutton would say, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Oh, man. I missed the Braves broadcasts just because they were soothing to listen to when you hopped in the car.
They really were.
They were. I mean, I would get in the car on the nights that the Braves played, and we were airing the games. You do this for a living too, Tom. You know what it is to talk all the time. You can't wait not to. So you sit in the car and not say anything, but listen to those that are really good at it in that situation. It's just kind of soothing. Just takes you to another place. You can just think.
Oh, I agree. In non-COVID times and in post-COVID times on a deck somewhere, you go retreat for a little while. You grab a nice cold glass or bottle of something that you want to sip on, and like staring at a wall is fine. It's okay. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, beautiful. Left to your own thoughts, devices, not staring at electronic screens or opening your mouth. It's great.
I am going to see in my lifetime, you'll get me going on a rant, so I'm going to try not to do that. That I think in my lifetime, the pushback on social media and the like, and certain aspects of the internet, because certainly not all aspects of the internet are bad, but we're going to see it. People are going to be like, yeah, you know what? Actually talking to somebody is going to be kind of important. Come to find out, it matters that we see each other's faces and we engage in conversation and have empathy and kind of learn about each other. Seems valuable to me.
Well, also, I think one thing that's happening a lot more in social media, just looking at the feeds, especially on game days and surrounding coverage of Florida State specifically, because that's what we do every day. But even like the Lightning stuff I paid attention to, or the Bucks, the human garbage that is the Twitter troll person.
They exist.
They're being ignored more and more.
More. It's starting to happen.
In the beginning, I think a lot of people, they wanted to answer everything that everybody said. You wanted to, please, like you talked about with your emails.
Oh, I used to. Yeah, that was when I started in radio and nobody knew who I was, and I was trying to build a relationship with an audience. I thought it was important that I answer everybody, whether they hated me, loved me, or somewhere in between, and they could write whatever they wanted to me, and I felt obligated to get back to them. That quickly died down, but once I stopped doing that, yes, that was helpful.
But like either the miserable person or the person who's trying to be a shock jock behind their keyboard, who says ridiculous things, like that used to get quote tweeted and people would say, look at this idiot. No more. They're just being straight ignored. And that's a good thing. I think that's the next step for social media.
I think people learned how to mute folks too.
They've muted them. Plus, there are these functions too where you could say no replies to a tweet. Like certain businesses have done, no replies to a tweet. I don't know that it's widely used yet,
I know you can do that on, like, if you post something on YouTube, a video or something, you can have no comments or whatever. And by all means, you want to eliminate comments just in general from, the comment section is obviously.
Sure. I mean, unless you're doing something like Tallahassee Game Day this Saturday morning.
Which you can hear this Saturday, right here, 9:30 a.m., right?
I think we're going to hear a lot of Ric Flairs on Saturday. I have a feeling. The Noel fans are ready for this game.
I'm very ready for this game, and I'll double down on what I've said all day long. I think Florida State's going to play well. I'm excited to see them play well, not because I root for Florida State, and that's what I'd like to see, but because I really want those that have bought in and given their all in the face of this adversity and everything they've been through to be rewarded. And we can talk about the coaches being in the right place and having the right system and going about the process of implementing not only their offense and their defense, but what they want behind the scenes behaviorally from players and all that. But at some point, it has to be paid off with a win. And they got that last week. And a lot of times, that is the precursor to more wins because they were rewarded for doing the right thing, and they'll want to buy in even more.
But you know what it empowers them to do? Be angrier.
Oh, sure.
This weekend, I fully expect the same way for Jacksonville State. I expected angry Mike Norvell that day. A couple of outbursts, the officials, the team, whatever, just to keep people in line because he, missed the Miami game, and that's important for him to stake his claim. Once again now, because they've won a football game, they're going to be feeling good about themselves. You got to guard against the overconfidence of your locker room. And also, they didn't play for 60 minutes, and he's been saying that to them every day this week. Hey, let's put a full game together. So what that tells me is on Saturday, the first guy that steps out of line or misses an assignment, Mike's going to jump down his throat. And that's the way it should be. This is a weekend of holding people accountable and forcing them to that next step, not being satisfied with getting that one top 5 win.
You know, maybe I'm old. I just can't fathom a kid on this football team somehow engaging in any form of entitlement. I mean, my God, you cannot possibly be overconfident.
Of course you can, though. That's what this group's been full of for the last 2 or 3 years.
What I'm saying is born out of a victory. They got one win and had to hold on for dear life, nearly blew a 31-7 lead. I would think if you're those kids, you're not like walking into games expecting that now you're going to go on some great run. You have the confidence to go execute and believe that if you do things the right way, you'll win games. Fine. That's different than taking the field assuming victory. Good Lord.
I think the right kids will. But I think you still have some players that are in transition. Look at all the personal fouls on the way to a 31-28 win that we probably should have lost. We gave, every opportunity for North Carolina to win that football game because we weren't finishing.
Yeah,
and that's part of the culture.
Yeah, yes and no. They would have finished. You need your kid to make a couple chip shot field goals. You finish if that happens. The one where you're absolutely right, and it's a holdover from the bad culture here the last few years, is the personal foul penalty on the 2. Yeah, that can't happen. That just can't happen. You're going to go in and score, and you're going to make it 38-7, and thanks for playing.
But we got quite a few. You had the extra point personal foul. You had another one just before they scored the touchdown on Marv, and then you've got some offensive penalties that short-circuit drives when you're moving the ball down the field. And you can't allow yourself to get that next score. Beyond the Dante one, there's a lot of moments where you go, what in the hell are you doing?
Well, what they can't do is, and this has nothing to do with culture, it's just you got to be better when you're running this kind of an offense. You cannot, before the ball is snapped, create a situation where you're behind the chains. And with false start penalties, you do that. And you saw that happen on 2, maybe 3 times in this game. 1st and 15 is no good. Again, we'll talk about this, but once you've made the decision that they've made, and it's the right decision, and you have this quarterback who does something very, very well, and you build around it, it's all predicated on staying ahead of the chains. You cannot be in 3rd and obvious, and it's a recipe for disaster whenever you're behind the chains. I wonder, Tom, moving forward, will they coach it this way? And what I mean is you're adding all these wrinkles to this offense that are all, again, born out of spread option stuff, right? So that's who you are because you're not a drop-back pass team. You can't do that. Jameis Winston's not walking through that door. So you don't have that. And you don't have Trevor Lawrence. You don't have a guy like that where you could just be a drop-back and pass team. And those kinds of guys make throws on 3rd down all the time. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, they can convert. He's not that guy. You got to be 2nd and 5. You got to play me honest. I could run, I could throw, and that sets everything else up. But if they are a team that, as defenses adjust, if they find themselves 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5 or more, or moreover, there is a penalty and we can't get all the yardage back and it's 3rd and 10 plus where you really can't run the ball and have realistic expectations that you're going to convert. I'm wondering, will they call it that way anyhow and punt? I would. I'm not putting him in the situation to where I'm going to give him a 1 read like they did on the interception. They gave him 1 read, and he botched it and forced a throw. Should have thrown that into next week.
It's an old school RPO, as in the quarterback's going to run, roll out, and either throw it or run it out of bounds
but you
or
get
throw
one.
it away.
Yeah, I'm not having him survey the field and try to go through 3 and 4. First of all, our offensive line isn't built to do that, and they haven't had to do that, and that's one of the reasons they're succeeding. Secondly, he's not that guy. He doesn't have the arm, and I don't think that he's that high-quality passer. So, to me, I'm not losing the game because I'm going to try to make him something he's not. I'm not doing that. It's 3rd and 10 and we're at our own 40. I'm going to roll him out and say, if it's there, hit it. But if it's not there, you take off and get whatever you can get. I'll make a decision. Listen, if you can get it to 4th and 3 and I feel good about it, a little bit of what we got with the Ravens last year, they always knew they were going to go on anything 3 or shorter. So he called his 3rd down offense last year as if it were 2nd down because he knew he was going to go on 4th if you got it to within 3 yards. That's a mentality. That's a cool way to play the game.
Well, there's 2 ways that you might change the math, and one is what you're talking about, near midfield, certainly across midfield. You might call 3rd and long a little bit differently, but then how about 3rd and long when you're at their 30? Are you really going to line up for a 47-yard field goal and an incomplete pass? Are you ready to do that?
I'm up. Okay. Well, first of all, I think hopefully they're making a change at kicker this weekend.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
even Grotehouse isn't that. I mean,
Well, we need a guy to emerge. We'll see what's going to happen. But right now, I'd kick a 47-yard field goal with him. I'd run it and see if I can make it a 44-yard field goal. But I'm gonna do something. I'm not having.
but
him,
you wouldn't call 3rd and 7 to get to 4th and 3 so you can go for it and ignore a 42-yard or 47-yard field goal.
4th and 3 or 4th and 2 from there, 30, depending on time, score, and all that.
Yeah.
I'm probably going for
Like,
that.
I get what you're saying about you're playing 3rd down to
I'm
get to
playing-
4th and manageable, right?
Right, yeah.
But I'm saying that you're probably going to extend that farther down the field closer to the end zone
Because we're not sure
because
about
of
our
the results
kickers.
that we just got the last week.
Yeah, but I'm also calling plays away from a weakness. So I am, again, going to make sure that I don't ask him to do something that he's not comfortable doing or that he's not really good at. And they already have done a great job of catering everything in this offense to all of the things he does really well.
They're an interesting group, these coaches, and specifically Mike, as to what he's willing to give and what he's not willing to give during the week. And one thing I think he's being 100% truthful about is when Toafili came up in the scrums this week, and he said that, listen, he wasn't a big part of the plan, but he will be for Saturday's game against Louisville. What that has me thinking is that two-back set
Yes,
with
I
Webb
agree
and
with that.
Toafili's
Yeah.
coming back this weekend. And that's a fun formation for us because both of those guys don't mind blocking for the other. And that's the kind of infectious thing you need.
Oh, and the receivers have been blocking, Tom. You go back to the first game of the year, even the second game, obviously, of the year, and there were moments where the opportunities were there for our receivers to block for one another on those bubbles and all the quick game stuff. And they just stood there. They didn't do anything. Those plays would get blown up and nobody would block. And I thought, once again, we've got a problem with buy-in. It's just not there. Now, receivers are blocking because they know the kind of system we're running, and it's paramount that they block. If you're going to get big plays, they've got to block. And then secondly, these running backs love each other and they block for each other all the time. You're right. Now, I would tell our starting quarterback not to block for people. I don't need you to do that 30 yards downfield. Let's just not do that, my man. Appreciate the effort. But, you're too valuable to be out here blocking people. We'll live. If he gets tackled there, he gets tackled there.
It's also interesting. I guess I would assume Corey will be the one for Warchant to go up there this weekend since he's already... Okay.
He is going, yes.
Well, he'll be on Jordan Travis watching the pregame then. That'll be his job to have the binoculars and looking and see how the warm-ups go. Word is that he's fine this week in practice, but, it's an AC joint. If it's something else that's going on with the non-throwing shoulder, that's one hit away. I mean, you could put a little jacket on there, a little flak jacket to absorb some of the pressure, but it's not like Jordan Travis's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, no.
Sliding, getting out of bounds always. He'll tuck his shoulder and he'll go try and make a first down for you on 3rd and 3 and try to power through. That might change his math on what he's willing to do or what the coaches tell him to do.
He only seems to know how to play one way. Now, you can change that over time and reps and so forth. It could be really, really interesting. I don't know. I mean, golly, if he gets hurt, and we've talked about it all week, I'm just going to assume Chubba Purdy knows enough of what we're doing with the spread to run him out there. I mean, just you cannot put James Blackman back out there.
They were prepared to this past weekend.
For a play, I think they were because they wanted to throw the ball, and it was a distance where they would throw the ball.
The game wasn't out of reach. It wasn't like one more first.
No.
I mean, the game was in the balance, and they were going to run him back out there. Chubba, I think, still had his hands on his pads, right?
He was. That would have been a little unfair to him. I mean, that's a weird situation.
It's a high leverage moment.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little unfair to him.
But do you think if it's first quarter 7-7, Jordan Travis goes down, it's Purdy that's going to roll
It's a Chubba Purdy party. That's what's going on right there, baby.
There's another T-shirt.
Yep, a little Chubba Purdy party. That's what we're doing up at Louisville. And there would be something special if, once again, those fans had to sit there and go, like, he goes off. They're like, okay, we're watching Malik Cunningham suck over here, and that was our guy until the witching hour. And then he switches, and look at him right here in our own backyard, just running up and down the field on us. There's a part of me that wants that, but not at the expense of Jordan Travis getting hurt. But then again, he's a former Louisville Cardinal as well, so you can have it any way you want it. It's former one of your guys.
Incentive galore.
It's fun to watch. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. hour of the Jeff Cameron Show, at least for today. Redemption Thursday edition of the program. I'm Jeff. That is Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free. Always, don't miss anything. But if you do, go back, get caught up at your leisure. For we will post the show, all 3 hours of it, as a podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can email the show if you like, JCS at 979ESPNradio.com. On Twitter, it's at J Cameron Show. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you're all right. You know, they really do screw us on Thursday Night Football, don't they? Thank goodness we got baseball. It's just awful every week. Remember when I pulled up that schedule, Tom? I was blown away. Thursday Night Football. Here we go. I'm going to pull this up right now while we're talking. Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm. It used to be Monday Night Football. In the Gruden and Tirico days, you could never find a good Monday Night Football game, ever.
It got so bad they would joke about it.
It got so bad, they both left. They said, the hell with this. Tirico's at NBC, and Gruden's back in the league because they were always calling Cincinnati and Cleveland.
So you get Giants-Eagles tonight, right?
That's correct.
That's a god-awful game. Next week, thanks for the Falcons at the Panthers. Another sorry-ass game. Then you get, okay, this potentially is all right. You're going to get Packers at the 49ers. That
Okay.
Potentially, you might be all right there.
Could it be the reeling Green Bay Packers, losers of 2 straight?
Yes, it could be. I think that's accurate. It could be. They've got, to me, that matchup, well, what else do we have? We have, I'm trying to find these other.
I've got the whole thing. If you want.
Go ahead, go for it.
Colts, Titans, mediocre.
No, not good. Not good. The Titans by then will be dominating. Yep.
Cardinals and Seahawks.
Seattle all the way.
Cowboys, Ravens, they got screwed there.
They did get screwed. Not a good game.
Patriots, Rams.
Oh, that's okay.
Chargers, Raiders.
Oh, okay. I like that game.
And Vikings. Could stop there. Saints.
No. Well, no. Have the Vikings quit? They're making trades.
Yeah. They're fire selling. Yeah, they're done.
They're done dealing.
Now, Justin Jefferson's going to put up a ton of points because they're going to throw the ball down the field, and Dalvin Cook's going to do what he does. But you know what? If they get to 1-7, 1-8, I'd say, Dalvin, 10 touches a game. We'll keep you fresh. We don't want you pulling anything, breaking anything, because you're apt to do that.
No chance there's going to be firings there, right? I mean, I wouldn't. Not through one bad year. You think so? You think
you
he's
may
in trouble?
want to. Well, Zimmer's interesting. You would think that when they got rid of Stefanski and he took the job, where was it Cincinnati? I don't even know where he is, but he left. You would think that with Kubiak calling the plays, that offense would take off a little bit because Kubiak was considered to be the man behind the man. That offense has done nothing. Kirk Cousins is all but done.
Stefanski's with the Browns.
With the Browns,
Yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm. That offense has been okay. Been better on the ground than through the air, obviously, because Baker's been shaky.
Yeah, Baker's not good.
But the Vikings offense has been mostly kind of cleanup material. You get a lot of points late in games when they're trailing games. And Zimmer's supposed to be a defensive guy, and that defense is in a total rebuild. So either you're going to stick with him for 3 years or you're going to fire him this offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point. By the way, Kevin Stefanski's only 38 years old. He's a young coach to be as experienced as he is in the NFL. You know, there are some teams, I think this is interesting. The 49ers fall under this umbrella. Cleveland falls under this umbrella. Arizona's not there yet, but I'm starting to look at them. I don't know what you do with the Jets. That's not really fair, I guess. I don't know if Darnold can play or not. I mean, that's an awful situation.
Terrible organization.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with that. But what I'm getting at is, you know how when you're a GM of a baseball team and you reach the All-Star break and you might have a winning record, but you know you're not any good? Your record is obscenely good in one-run games, or your batting average on balls put in play is 380.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. All right. You know, the GMs in that situation put themselves in a really difficult place because they owe it to the organization. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the owner. They have to look at this and say, we're not actually a contender. We cannot win the World Series, so let's not sell off pieces and go get a veteran player that would solidify a run because we don't have the pitching to win. But when you do that, when you don't make a move and you're saying we're going to stand down, you've just told your fans that you're not in it to win it this year. And yet you're asking them to buy tickets because you have a winning record and, all of that. But you just told them you think it's a farce. All right, I think those organizations I just named are in that position with their starting quarterbacks. They've seen enough to know the ceiling for those guys, like what they are, what's the best version of them, and it's probably not good enough. Baker Mayfield probably never going to be good enough.
So saw a graphic this morning on NFL Network about the Browns and where they stand at 4-2 with point differential, and all the teams since like 1976 that have had a similar point differential. The Bucs actually appeared twice on this list, 2010, 2011. Remember those Freeman teams? They got lucky a lot.
Oh, God, yeah, they did.
And whether or not those teams make the playoffs. And up and down the list, the Browns are towards the better half of the list, but there are teams that, had negative 20-point differential, 24, 30, whatever. None of them make the playoffs, even if they're 4-2 historically. So that's what you would be looking at if you're a general manager saying, okay, we're 4-2. Division's tough. 7 teams do make the playoffs this year. That's different.
That is different
than a lot of these other teams from the previous, 15, 20 years. But historically speaking, if you're right where they are in the point differential, you are not going to make the playoffs.
The only reason right now to be excited as a Browns fan is the 4-2 record, because here's the deal. You're not going to beat out the Ravens in the division, and you're not going to beat out the Steelers. The Steelers just gave you a resounding message about what you are compared to them.
Lesser than, yes.
So, and you were in a war with Cincinnati at one point. So I think Cleveland is a fugazi. That's what Cleveland is. They're a fugazi at 4-2. All right, and
okay.
I think their quarterback is a fugazi. So, but what's got to be difficult is, man, that was a popular pick. He's a popular guy, I would presume. He's on commercials. He's everywhere. He's all those things. But like right now, if you're the Cleveland Browns GM, you're going, we can't win with this guy. That's got to be an awful place to be in, because you're just spinning your tires, man. You may go 10-6 and make the playoffs because it's an expanded play. What are you really doing? That's right. That's right. That's what you are. And I think San Francisco, who did go to the Super Bowl and came this close to winning it all, is taking a look at Garoppolo right about now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We may have us a fugazi. They're looking around. Is
that a clean word in
the
language?
Yeah. So they're looking at him going, he's kind of the thing that's going to hold us back. Everything else seems pretty solid around here. Our coach is smart as hell. That guy right there, I think he's a little shaky. So what do, man? That's got to be the worst. It's just.
Those are the goats, by the way, the fraudulent goats
the fraudulent
for the new
goats.
People. Well, San Francisco is rumored to be at least thinking about pursuing Matt Ryan for a rental after this season is over.
Okay.
Because he works with Shanahan quite well.
Sure.
Does the offense very well.
Yeah, they had a good marriage there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Matthew Ryan probably needs a change of scenery. I think he's about done in Atlanta. The folks there say, look, man, you were given one of the greatest offensive outputs all around you that anybody's ever fallen into. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you've had Pro Bowlers everywhere on this offense. And you did win an MVP and get us to the Super Bowl, and a game we should have won.
28-3. One missed blitz pickup should not cost us the title.
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
That's what he should be saying.
Yeah.
That's what his people would say. His agent would say that, and all of his PR folks would say, now hold on with all this Matt Ryan blame. But I don't think they love him anymore, and he is kind of what he is. I don't know.
He's 35, 36 years old. If you can get something for him, get something for him.
Yeah, I think it's time to probably move on. I think both sides would be happy to move on.
They screwed it. They had a chance. They built the organization up. They built it around Matt Ryan. They protected him. They did a good job. And then when he was ready to actually take the reins 4 or 5 years into his career and be the featured piece of the offense, distribute the ball, he did.
Yeah, he did.
But then they just screwed it up.
Well, run the ball.
That's Dimitrov for you.
Yes. Well, run the ball. It's 28-3. Mm-hmm. You could have run the ball into the middle of the line. The rest of the game.
They got the spike they were looking for out of defense when they got Dan Quinn from Seattle. And they saw, boom, right away. You saw results. It was all coming together.
And then now they became Atlanta. That's what Atlanta does. Lose. That's what they do. Wagers, here they are. Give me those Knowles, baby. FSU +5 against Louisville. I'll take it all day long. Yeah, buddy. Knowles +5. Upwardly mobile. They are on a positive trajectory, folks. Give me those Knowles.
Oh, it's incredible!
That would be back-to-back victories and a little something called momentum.
Oh, it's incredible!
There'd be belief in Tallytown about where these Knowles are headed, baby. Yeah. That's a good feeling, isn't it? Woo! Now you go out there and get it, boys. Go out there and get it. Give me North Carolina to bounce back after their devastating loss to Florida State. Mac Brown's used to it, never having beaten Florida State. He'll have to pick up the pieces yet again.
The Mac Brown Bohica.
10 times. One of these days, Mac. UNC -14.5 against the Fighting Bailey Hawkmans. I'll give that 14.5 all day long. Oh, buddy.
That offense does not look good.
Not when he's in
with
there.
old Lefty.
He's terrible. Alabama -21.5 against Tennessee. Tennessee revealed themselves to be fraudulent. Speaking of the GOATs, you can go there all day with Tennessee. They don't have a quarterback that can throw the ball. Kind of important. Especially against Alabama, because Alabama will shut down the run, and then where are you at?
That is a world record for fraudulent goat output in one segment, too.
But it was fun. I like the sounds of goats. I like goats. I'd like to own a couple goats as pets. I've thought about it for years. If I got enough land for them, I'm buying some goats.
Really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Different surfaces for them to just jump on.
Oh, all of it. I want to watch them. They're awesome. Goats kick ass. Down where my mother lives, they have this land in Bradenton where they live, but it's kind of farmish area, and it's pretty rural. And when I go down there and go for walks, there's a couple of neighbors that have goats everywhere, and they're awesome. I always go up to the fence, and they come running up to me.
I know that the point of these instruments is that they're fragile and you have to take very good care of them. But if there was a way to create a surface that a goat could stomp on and you'd hear steel drum noises, wouldn't that be amazing?
Goats are awesome. All right, give me Virginia Tech -9 against Wake. Somebody asked me the question yesterday, who's the second best team in the ACC? Ooh, that's a toughie. Whoever it is can barely see Clemson from where they sit. It ain't pretty, but I would argue that right now that may be Virginia Tech eventually. I know they lost to North Carolina, and we beat North Carolina, and a lot of people thought North Carolina was the second best team, and if not them, maybe Miami. I'm not so sure. I'm kind of torn in all this. I like Virginia Tech. I like where Virginia Tech's headed, and I like them giving 9 against Wake Forest this week, and so I'll do that all day.
Notre Dame is the answer for now, but
Maybe.
red flags for that Louisville performance.
Yeah, that 12-7 game concerned me. We also moved the ball on them considerably.
That's what I'm saying. Trended in the right direction.
Yes, we are.
Get Tamorian back. Maybe we will be the second best team in the ACC.
Now that's incredible.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Probably not.
No. Purdue +3.5 against Iowa. I just don't know. It's been a shaky offseason in Iowa. Give me Purdue. Miami -12.5 against Virginia. I don't think Virginia can play. Penn State -6 against Indiana. Indiana's never any good. Give me Penn State. Kind of going in blindly here with these Big Ten teams.
That is the play, Virginia, Miami, to learn whether or not they are for real. Because this is a game Virginia would contend in if it's one of those years.
If
where they're
Miami's
a little
going
bit of
back
this,
to being
a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Well, for Virginia's purposes.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. I think Miami wins comfortably. And in the NFL, give me Philly -4.5 against the Giants for tonight's game. I know you're not supposed to bet Thursday night games, the Giants are horrible. They shouldn't have won last week. They get a scoop and score. A ridiculous play on a sack, and then Washington goes down and scores and goes for 2 and F's it up, and there you go. There I am. But it's okay because I had them +2.5 or whatever I had, and they lost by 1, so I thought, all right.
Yeah, tie is more damaging,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they're going for 2. The moment they do that, you got to be real happy.
The only reason it made me mad was I picked them straight up to beat the Giants against my mom, so I ended up losing that game. But as far as my wager went, yes, I go for 2 by all means. I'm going to win one way or the other.
End it right here.
Right here. Yeah, I actually respect it, though. He's a good coach, and I do respect what he's doing. I mean, what are they really playing for? What are we doing here?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
They're
Yeah.
getting a better draft pick if they lose.
Yeah.
Good
So,
job.
Yeah, go out there and get after it. I'll take the Eagles. I'm not sold on, obviously, the Eagles, but it's the Giants. Houston +3.5. Houston's better than their record. They've had a ridiculously difficult schedule. I mean, absurdly difficult schedule. They've played every good team in the league already. It doesn't matter. Chiefs, Steelers, Titans on down the list.
85 Bears.
It's crazy. Give me Houston plus 3.5 here. And then finally, I'll take the Chargers against the sorry Jags. 7.5. I don't like giving 7.5. The hook bothers me, but I feel like the Jags are also in the contention for that number one pick.
Well,
they, too, don't have a quarterback.
Detroit rolled up in their building and did some things to them on offense, and now they got to go across the country to a team that's coming off of a bye. There is the case.
That's why I picked them. Chargers minus 7.5. Those are the wagers. For those of you that are unaware, we do this for charity. Non-perishable food items. Honor system. You keep a running tab if you want to tango with any of those games. We post them up on the webpage there, on the Facebook page, and all that good stuff. You can find them. And then at some point, cash that in. And if I owe you, I owe you. You need to send it to me and let me know. Honor system. But I know what my record is, and I've got food items going one way or the other.
Keeping tabs?
I keep tabs. We have it. It's a permanent record. Matthew can always go back and check it on the website each week, so we're good to go there. Chef Kevin Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. We got to do some DSF on the JCS here in just a moment. Love it. It's Thursday. It's Redemption Thursday, and that means when you hear Prince, which is always a good thing, it's time for DSG on DFS here on the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Downs and St. Germain Research, a full-service market research firm located right here in beautiful Tallahassee, Florida, has been since 1981. Downs and St. Germain Research conducts surveys and focus groups for local, state, and national organizations. Researching to win your fantasy weekend is fun, but researching to strengthen your organization, well, that's a winning strategy. Online at dsg-research.com. Dr. Joseph St. Germain joins me now. Hello, Joey. How are you, brother?
I'm great. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing well, too. I'm excited that in the rundown you got a two-team teaser to talk about today. I love these teasers. I love them. I know they're bad for you. I know that if you're giving advice to people, you're telling them, on the whole, let's lay off of teasers. But I'm an addict. Tom and I are addicts about the teasers.
No, I hear you. And there's a way to do them. So there's a way to do them. It's just, you just don't get too crazy, ladies and gentlemen. You start winning a few teasers, especially at the start of the year. It doesn't become your only bet, but they can be worthwhile.
It's funny. You feel like you're in more control. And I think a lot of times in wagering, you make your bet if you're inclined to do so, and then you sit back and hope like hell that things play out the way they're supposed to. Quote unquote, supposed to. But with a teaser, you kind of feel like, well, I'm manipulating the number here. I've got more control over this bet.
I totally agree. And folks, the bookmakers know that. That's why they got the bigger buildings than you or I have.
All right. Best quarterbacks for week 7. Fire away.
Hey, I see 2 of them this week. My favorite one is Kyler Murray. He rushes the ball a lot. He has 70 yards rushing or a rushing touchdown in each game. The Cardinals are number 2 in pace, and I can't remember where this data point came from, but they're scheduled to throw about 10 more times than normal this week against the Seahawks, which could be a shootout. So I like him. However, he's kind of expensive. So depending on your build and who you're looking for, if you're looking for a cheap quarterback, I like Burrow against Cleveland. Since he throws the ball a lot, he has some rushing equity, and I think Cleveland gets ahead in this one early, or at least I think they're going to win and cover. So I think Burrow's going to have more opportunities to throw this week. So again, I like Kyler better. He's more expensive, so sometimes you have to go with the cheaper option.
All right, when we're looking at wide receivers, I really need this advice. Whatever it is about to tell our listeners, I need this advice because when I'm on a receiver, they don't produce. When I'm off the same receiver, they go out and have huge days. I'm the kiss of death. I know everybody feels that way about their fantasy projections, but I want to hear yours for value at the wide receiver position.
You're not the only one. Wide receiver is a really volatile position. So that's why it's a place where I tend to spend a little bit lower. But again, we're going to look at some data points to try to make better decisions. Even though they're volatile, there are some things that point us in the right direction. I do like Keenan Allen. He had that injury a couple week ago, and he had a bye last week to rest. You still have to watch him. But since Herbert got in there, he's gotten at least 10 targets a game. And targets is kind of our key stat.
Gold.
But the one I like the most is Terry McLaurin. He's had some really tough cornerback matchups. Now he's going against Darryl Worley in Dallas. They've given up the second most schedule adjusted yards wide receiver ones. He gets a ton of targets and a lot of air yards. And he even popped up on the air yards model, which it tends to predict when a receiver kind of pops. So those are the 2 that I'm kind of eyeing right now.
All right, so let's jump to picks. The Jets are 0-6 against the spread. Would this be the week to take them?
If I'm playing that side, I'm playing the Jets. I'm still not ready because I'm not sure if those guys care, period. But people I respect put the spread around 10. Jets just kind of want to run the ball, which the Chiefs showed us last week you can do against the Bills. And it's kind of a look-ahead spot for the Bills because they have the Patriots coming up next week, for that division. So if you're going to take them, this is the week. I'm not sure I'm ready. Kind of the one I'm leaning more towards is Cleveland. We went against them last week because they do poorly under pressure since he doesn't get pressure. So I'm taking Cleveland because I am hearing that they're trying to trade some of their veterans like A.J. Green and Geno Atkins. So I don't know how much those veterans are going to play much this weekend.
All right, fair enough. And, oh, by the way, I know you and I talked about this off the air. Mike Greenberg brought it up because he has to play the tortured Jets role. But the truth is, if the Jets players ever cared, they would beat the Clemson Tigers or any other college football team that's you grab the greatest college football team ever assembled, it wouldn't matter, right? But what do you think, and I know you read about these things and you know about these, what do you think the spread would be if Clemson played the Jets?
I remember a few years ago when the Jags were terrible and Alabama was really good. They asked a bunch of sports books and they put the spread between Jags minus 21 to Jags minus 28. So maybe it's only Jets by 17 against Clemson or 20. But honestly, if you had a motivated NFL team, they're going to crush a college team because an NFL team has 53 NFL players. Even the best college teams of all time are in the 20s.
Yeah,
30s maybe.
Yeah, and those players, that's what they do year round, train to beat that ass, and they would do it against college kids all day long. All right, to the aforementioned two-team teaser, sir. What do you got for us?
Once again, we're using data to make better decisions. The key with the teasers is to get through the key numbers of 3 and 7. I'm going to go with the Saints minus 1.5 after getting those 6 points at home against Carolina. And then I'm also going to tease up the Detroit Lions to plus 8.5 against Atlanta. Both of those sides there's not a lot to love about the defenses of Carolina and Atlanta. So I'm just trying to manipulate those points to put us in a better spot.
I love it. Making better decisions, using data to do so. Brother, it's always appreciated. You be well. Have fun with the games this weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.
Same to you folks. Take care.
All right. That's Dr. Joseph St. Germain. And you guys know we do this segment every week. It's brought to you by Downs and St. Germain Research, full-service market research firm located here in Tallahassee. Downs and St. Germain Research. They conduct surveys, focus groups for local, state, and national organizations. Hey, look, it's you want to use this information, folks. If you want to learn more about their winning strategy, it's online at dsg-research.com. Jeff Cameron Show continues in a moment. taking a good long look at possible teasers. 2-team teaser pleasers. I think I'd go different than what you guys did. I think I would take the Chargers and whittle that down to 1.5. I'm going to give you just the one. That's right, Jacksonville. You get just the one. Take the Chargers minus 1.5, and I would marry that, I do believe, with, and I'm torn on this one a little bit, but I think I'd marry that with the Steelers plus 7.5. So I'd take the Steelers getting 7.5 against the Titans, and I would marry it with the, like I said, the Chargers giving just a point to the Jaguars.
The funny thing about teasers is you can move them both ways and win them both ways.
Yeah, you can.
And I would pick the opposite in the Carolina and New Orleans game. New Orleans is offensively challenged. Michael Thomas has been cleared, but is he simpatico with his teammates? That makes a difference, I think, to the tune of 3 to 6 points. So I took Carolina and got it up to 13.5. I like that number.
You like that Carolina team more than most, so I that doesn't surprise me. But you take that in what would be the other game because you have to marry it with something.
The other game, I moved Chicago up to 11.5-point dogs.
Okay.
They play such good defense. It's tough to beat them by 2 full touchdowns. Now, it could happen. It definitely could, but I like those odds.
Yeah, I don't like that Rams team. I'd like this game more. I'd be on your side more if the Rams were on the road because they don't play well on the road. But I see your vision there.
And if it was a Sunday game, I don't think I would have done it. But the extra day for Chicago to get across the country out to the West Coast, I think that's good. And Jared Goff facing adversity consistently in his face, I don't know that that's going to go well.
Yeah, not a great quarterback when things aren't perfect.
Lose by 10, no problem.
Yeah, no, you're good. I like that one more than I like your Carolina one. Although, I mean, listen, anytime you take an NFL team, truthfully, if you get an NFL team, any NFL team, even the Jets, and you're getting 13 points as you've manipulated the number,
yeah,
you typically have to do that. I know that sharps in Vegas, anytime there's a double-digit spread for an underdog, they don't even look at the teams. They just take it. They take it because they're going to bet over the long haul that they win that, and you can't cherry-pick spreads. You have to do that.
Well, I don't think Carolina is a 4-12 type team. I think they're closer to 8-8.
I agree with
10-6
like
with turnover luck, 6-10 without turnover luck, and you're getting basically 2 touchdowns. I know that 14 points would cost me, but I'm teasing it up through the 10 and the 13 number, which are key.
Yeah, I would. God, I'd fight like hell to get that 14th point just to cover my ass on a 28-14 or 31-17 loss.
But 13.5 to 14 doesn't matter to me because if you push, you lose. So that half point, there's no value there.
Yeah. Well, you would lose just the juice, right? You don't lose. You lose on a push.
I believe in a teaser. If there's one push,
on a teaser.
So to me, that half
you
point
have to win outright.
Doesn't value to me.
You would need
I don't think it's
going
to get to 8.5 in that game.
Yeah, you would need a full point. You'd need 14.5. Yeah, no, that's fair. This isn't the week. The card doesn't have, like last week we joked about it on the show. We were, hey, I got two teaser pleasers, and actually that's what we dubbed a teaser pleaser, was that if you could get 2 of them. Not one teaser, but 2. Then it's a 2-team teaser pleaser.
Which at the bar, if you got that, we'd also give you a mug to take home.
We'd give you a mug and we'd get you a drink. We'd get you the Bloody Mary with a little side beer. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
That's
Joey introduced that last week on the show. I would suggest that it doesn't exist on the card this week. You can't get 2. I just can't find 2. I don't even like the ones. I had to reach for my 1.
Yeah, I had to push it a little bit on this one just to make Sunday a little bit interesting.
Some of them, that's the thing about teasers, Tom, and maybe it's just that we're kind of getting into it. We're just wading into those waters more these days. But the weekends that I've won, and I've won all of my teasers, by the way. I haven't lost a single teaser yet. Mm-hmm. I've only done 3, but I've won. But I've won every one. What I would tell you is
2-1 personally.
What I would tell you is that when I do them, they leap off the page. Mm-hmm. Now, normally when that happens on a game, if there's a game that leaps off, just a straight-up game, where the number seems that off to me, I'm really nervous. I don't touch it. Like, if it seems crazy to me that so-and-so is only favored by 2,
right?
I'm like, somebody knows something I don't know.
In a straight-up line, not manipulated.
Right, in the straight-up line where somebody's favored in a weird way where you go, doesn't that read weird to you? Doesn't that line seem odd to you? You know what, folks? When you say that to yourself, run. There's no law that you got to bet that game. It means somebody knows something, and you got to run from it. The sharps have likely manipulated that line because they've got some inside knowledge. Somebody's hurt. Somebody's not going to play that's listed as probable, something along those lines. So I leave it alone. But with my teaser bets, if I know that I can jack this number down or up to a place where I'm going, oh my God, this is like a no-brainer. Unless something bizarre happens, that number is going to come in my favor, then I jump all over those.
But if you wanted to do a leg of a teaser tonight, you would move the Giants to plus 10.5, wouldn't you? That's a key move. You could get the Giants up to 10.5.
I wouldn't do it, but yes, I would. That's the way I'd go. You never tease through the number 0, by the way, so you couldn't do it the other way. You wouldn't like go to the Eagles.
You couldn't, like, for example, if you did it with the Falcons this weekend, you get the Falcons plus 3.5 if you tease through 0.
Yeah, but they tell you never to do that. They say there's no value in teasing through 0. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's like the professional gamblers, when they do, I've listened to those guys talk about it. They say never on your life do you tease through the number 0 because there's no value to it. I'll look up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you can get past a field goal the other way.
Yeah, no. If something goes so wrong that Detroit's going to beat Atlanta, what they're going to argue is that something is so far off there, Detroit's just going to stomp Atlanta. I bet you that's what they'd say. They're going to say that it's not a close game. Detroit just wins it. If that happens, where Detroit, who's getting points, goes ahead and wins the game.
I feel like taking shots this weekend. Not the
well, it's a noon game,
time.
Tom. You got plenty of time to do shots
afterwards.
right
Yeah,
afterwards,
a little
buddy.
rumble after the show.
You could do it.
Yeah. Straight up dogs against Big Ten teams this weekend. Just take a shot because, like Northwestern and Maryland, right?
Yeah.
Maryland, the number you can get on them straight on the money line is massive against Northwestern. Do we feel really that great about Northwestern and Maryland that Northwestern's an 11-point favorite in that game?
We don't, Tom. And I'll tell you something else. For whatever reason, and it's probably because I'm a bit of a degenerate, there's a trend with Maryland football. And this is my observation. This isn't anything I've read. They play the first 2 to 3 games of the year exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Texas knows this. Mm-hmm. But they do this every year. They'll come out the gates and bomb somebody. They'll drop 50. They did it last year. They scored like 50-something points on somebody.
Yeah, their two options at quarterback, probably what has people pausing. Maybe they have a 2-quarterback system, and they have no experience. It's,
right.
Tua's little brother, and then it's Legendry, the kid who decommitted from us last second and went up to play for up them.
Well, they're just weird. For whatever reason, they play early season games well, and then they fall off a cliff. Then, like, you can't bet them anymore. By week 3, week 4, they're back to being Maryland. And you're just like, okay, well, they're Maryland. I'm not going to mess with them. But for whatever reason, they always start out hot. I don't know why. That's a trend that's gone on for several years. So I see your point with that game. By the way, Iowa has had the most ridiculously poor offseason any program that I can think of has had. I'm not so sure that the African-American players on Iowa's football team want to be there based on public statements, not a hunch, just things they've said. It seems like that there's been real upheaval in that Iowa program. Coaches have been fired. You had the head coach having to come out and apologize for the culture that was created in the locker room at Iowa football. You had kids decommit, transfer, sit out. They're favored. They may very well win. Maybe they've remedied that situation and they're kumbaya. I don't know. But I saw that number with Purdue and went, kind of like Purdue to win straight up.
Right, yeah. Just judging by what happened in the SEC and the ACC
right.
when they started and how COVID has just turned everything upside down. And it takes a few weeks to get settled. We've seen that. That information is
definitely
true.
Seen that, yeah.
Big 12 as well. You might as well take a couple of cracks, $10 and
pizza money, Tom.
That's right.
Throw some pizza money at it. What the hell? It comes back big. You can get 2 pizzas.
The why not special.
It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Wrapping it up, Jeff Cameron Show, and no baseball tonight. They're skipping the World Series this evening. God dog it, would you look at that? Just checking today's leaderboard with the golf and noticed that one of my guys is playing really, really well, or one of the guys I thought would play really, really well is, and the dude I'm in the pool with took him before I could select him by one pick, Tom. That's unfortunate. That happens. That's what happens when you're in a league.
You sassy bitch.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one of the things that this has enabled me to do is to really get in depth with the horses for courses knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know how close we are to the Masters? I mean, it is right around the corner.
In a few weeks. Yep.
Couple weeks, isn't it? What is the date on the Masters? Double check that. That's my fault.
right.
I know I stumbled into it, but I think we're a couple of weeks away. I'm really, really pleased to note that apparently the course is going to look fantastic, but it could be awfully cold.
Yeah, 3 weeks. November the 12th.
I tried to rush it. I tried to get it here sooner. I mean, I can only do so many Zoso championships. And by the way, if you're Tiger Woods, I mean, I know you've played well at Sherwood Country Club in Thousand Oaks before. That's the site of your old tournament there, and
Who could forget?
And you've won it and all that. But remember, he won the Zoso last year over in Japan. That course was beautiful, and he loved it. I mean, that is as good as he's looked. He looked better there than he did at the Masters. He looked incredible. He had every shot in the bag. He was able to swing free and easy. They couldn't have been more excited in Japan to have that's the first time they had hosted the tournament on the PGA Tour, and he wins it.
They had the ceremony for him, and the person introduced him. It took him about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I remember counting it.
Oh, yeah.
I just decided to leave it on. I was like, I'm going to put a timer on this.
What are we doing?
And Tiger's just standing there. Not seated, not anything.
No,
He's
just
standing there,
there,
kind of
yeah.
like, doing that little move
like,
back and forth.
What are we doing here, guys?
Rocking back and forth. What are we doing, guys? Come on. Got a boat to be on.
Yeah,
Good things happen on Tiger's boat.
Yeah, they do. And it's a sizable boat. Have you seen his yacht?
I call it the 15th Club.
Have you seen his yacht?
I have.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, because...
well, he rolls up on tournaments.
Yeah, he stayed there for Bethpage.
Yeah, that's really quite nice. That'd be a good thing to be able to do. Have like a
15th Club ready for docking.
A mansion on the water just outside of town. I'll go hang out. This segment brought to you by Widden Glass. Widden Glass, a family-owned and operated business serving Tallahassee and the Big Bend area since 1945. They are Tallahassee's first family in glass replacement. Highly respected for their quality of installation, both residential and commercial. Widden Glass, 222-5781. That's 222-5781.
When this boat's a rocking, that means I'm on the boat.
Hey, normally I would segue on into the matchup for baseball, but there isn't one. I'm mistaken. They do not play tonight, so it was a good thing the Rays won last night, got the win, looked good doing it, and Snell pitched well.
I have a buddy who's going to be able to say that he was there for Game 3 of the World Series. He's flying out tomorrow, and he's going to take in the new ballpark in Arlington.
Said buddy. He's a good guy. I'm happy for him.
He paid, he won't mind me sharing because it's on StubHub. I'm sure you can find it, but $700 is what it cost for secondary market ticket to this game tomorrow, which actually isn't that bad.
No, it's a World Series ticket. I mean, it's
But, it's in a market in Arlington where people aren't really wanting to travel right now, so I'm sure that drops the price a little bit, given that there's only a few seats there. But, catching you did it already, a live sporting event in the time of COVID. You've done it twice, actually. Florida State, you've been to a game, and then you've been down
I've been
there
to
for
a Florida
Bucks.
State game in the stands, that is, and I also went to the Bucks game. Last week, my mother went to the Bucks game, and they're doing
She
it.
must have the time of her life.
She did. She had a big time, and it was hilarious. She was over the moon with the performance, and I actually saw them on television. I know right where those seats are because they're where I sat with Bryce a couple weeks prior. So where Gronk was when he scored, that's the end zone that they.
So it's far right.
It's on that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're on that goal line.
Okay.
That's where those seats are. And so when he's catching the ball, you can look up. I saw her and my stepdad sitting there, and their hands are up in the air. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome because she also got to see Aaron Rodgers look good for 10 minutes. But those were a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, and that's all you need. Got you. Okay, looking good, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can sit down.
Then he does the pelvic thrust, which nobody has a problem with because it's Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. Was that
if that was Cam Newton, you think people would have a problem with it?
Of course. Was that to indicate that he wanted the belt, though?
I don't know. When you put two hands on your head and then you do the pelvic thrust, nothing good about that. If Lamar Jackson did that, do you think people would have a problem?
Of course, man.
Of course they
it's
would.
Funny, yes. Joe Buck, did he say anything?
He chuckled.
Oh, of course.
Even though Randy Moss years ago, that is a disgusting act.
Yeah. I think he learned his lesson from that. He had to have. He sounded like an over-the-top buffoon there.
Yeah. When Tony Dungy is calling you out for being too square, that's a problem.
It's nearly impossible.
That's right. But it happened in that situation.
Yeah, it did. It was nearly impossible. So no baseball tonight, but we do have the NFL for you. So if you're driving around or working late, you got the game right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Scuttlebucks. We've got the Scuttlebucks for you. Tom and I did that today. Lita Kipper, who you heard earlier on the show, is featured in that as well. So if you missed any of that, you can hear it here again in just a second. Also, crossing our fingers at the time that we're playing the Scuttlebucks here tonight that Bucks-Raiders game is actually going to be played.
That was recorded today lunchtime, so it might be dated information a little bit slightly, but we'll see. We'll see when they play. I have a feeling they're gonna.
The league has indicated, and through their actions, that they really want that game to be played. They want all these games to be played. They've got billions of dollars on the line for the games to be played.
But there might be a mini Tennessee type deal that they're investigating. So we'll see what comes of that, of course.
Oh, boy. All right. Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Be well, everybody. Have a good night. Listen to the football if you're out and about or working. We've got it for you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on a Libations Friday. Look forward to doing it.